Okay, so the first lesson we're going to go through is why do you want to use WordPress as to power your website? So, one of the biggest reasons why I recommend using WordPress is because it has a massive community of support and developers that pretty much no other sort of web platform can even come close to matching at this point. The other thing is, we're going to look at this article here from Tech Republic, is that WordPress actually powers at least 27% of all websites on the internet. Okay, and this is in 2017, so this was last year, and it's pretty much growing, I think, every year. I believe this number was actually lower just a couple of years ago, so it's just growing exponentially. Okay, so that's actually quite a huge chunk of websites that's being powered by this one platform. Okay. So the other thing is, now it doesn't mean, now WordPress is actually a pretty good platform. Is it the best? I mean, some people will argue otherwise, but it's the same argument as back in the days, 80s, the VHS versus beta argument, right? So probably a lot of you, if you're a lot younger, then you probably don't even know what this means, but VHS and beta was actually two types of technology of cassette tape, or video recording cassette tape. Okay, now I don't think you'll find a lot of VCRs around anymore, but at that time, it was just when videotapes were just coming out. That was the main, I guess, medium, you could say, in video. And the thing is, back in those days, the beta format was actually a better quality than the VHS. But for whatever reason or another, VHS was the one that became the most commonly used and the most accepted format. And beta just ended up going away, falling by the wayside. And of course, eventually, cassette tapes eventually gave way to DVDs, or rather Laserdisc first and then DVDs. And then Blu-ray, and now it's all digital, isn't it? So it doesn't matter whether you think WordPress is the best. It's the fact that it is probably one of the most dominant platforms that powers websites today. And it has a massive community, which means that you can find pretty much anybody, find a wealth, an abundance of developers, software, themes, people that will know how to use and work with WordPress. And that's the most important thing. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to talk about web hosting. So I'm just going to introduce to you why exactly do you need a web host, and what exactly is web hosting, So a web host is really just another name for a computer, which acts as a server. Okay, so you will hear and come across terms such as web host server. That is basically, in essence, just a normal computer with hard drives that is basically on 24/7, 365 days a year. So it's just constantly on. And the reason why it's constantly on is obviously it needs to be on consistently because this is where, on this computer or server, is where your website files will reside. And in order for people to constantly access your website, which is hosted on this computer or server, this server needs to be constantly on and available. Okay, so what happens is, that's why we use a web hosting company, because nowadays nobody really will run their own server at home. Okay, because there's just so much involved. You need the electricity it eats up. You need to keep your computer cool down in order for it to, so it keeps working. And plus prices nowadays is just that it's just easier and more cost feasible for you to just sign up with a web host. So with this web host or the server, it is constantly connected to, whoops, it's constantly connected to the internet. Okay, so this is on 24/7. And then when people, they're on their computers or their mobile phones or tablets, when they get onto the internet and they want to access your website, this is what will happen. Okay, so that's what the purpose of a web host or server is. Now, what you'll find in terms of web hosting, a lot of times, especially if you're first starting out, or you'll hear the term shared hosting. What does that mean? That means on this very same computer or server, there are multiple customers hosting their website on this very same machine as yours. Okay, so you could have one website, two websites, three websites, a whole number of websites on this one server. Okay, that's what shared hosting means. So that's why the resources on this server or computer is shared between all of these customers and websites that are on this computer. So that's why that's the difference between a dedicated host or web host, means that the entire computer or server is used by you and you alone. Okay, so only your website or websites, if you're hosting multiple websites on the one server, that means this server and computer is dedicated to you only. It is not shared with any other customer or websites. Okay, so that's what that will tell you. That it kind of explains the common jargon in terms of what web hosting is and why you need it. Okay, in this lesson, I'm going to talk about what not to do when it comes to web hosting and selecting your web host that you'll go with. So the first thing is, what most people will do, especially if you're new to this and you're just starting out, you're most likely going to go to Google and you're going to start typing in web host reviews or web host suggestions, top 10 web hosting companies, etc. And what's going to happen is, let's actually go and check that out. Let's see, web hosting, top 10 web hosting. Okay. So you see there's a whole bunch of ads are coming up first. Top 10 best website hosting, blah, blah, blah. These are all web hosting review sites. I'm not going to click on those right now, but now you don't want to do that. And the reason why is a lot of these top, web host review sites, they're all, the way they make money is through affiliate sales. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with making some money or a commission based on a recommendation. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it, except that a lot of these websites, they don't really make really good recommendations. So they're most likely, okay, so I lied. I'm going to click on it, one of these. So here, let's look at the first top 4 web hosting companies that they are suggesting. And I can tell you right off the bat, when I first started doing this, I did the same thing. I went on these type of web hosts and I thought, oh, okay, great. They recommend these. I went with one of their top 3 referrals, okay, suggestions. And what ended up happening is it was one of the worst companies. Like I don't even think they're around anymore. And I can tell you, knowing what I know now, I've never heard of iPage web hosts. I have nothing against them. I know nothing about them. Maybe they're good. I don't know. But I've never heard of them after I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. Never heard of these guys. Bluehost, I hear a lot about. But you want to stay away from them though. Okay, now you're going to get a lot of people that are recommend or so-called recommend quote unquote Bluehost. Same with HostGator as well. And I wouldn't go with any of these actually that are listed on this site, because they're most likely the recommendations here are pretty biased. Okay, some of these guys are paying some of the highest commissions on the market, and that's probably why this website is promoting them. But there's actually, I would probably not go with any one of these type of these companies. I used to use HostGator, and I was pretty happy with them up until recently. In the last recent years, they were actually acquired by a larger group, and a lot of things kind of went downhill. It's called the EIG group, and if you look around, pretty much all web developers will tell you to stay away from any web hosting company that is within this EIG group. And not sure, but Bluehost may be also. But you can run a check on that if you want. You can just go to Wikipedia and look up EIG group. It'll list all the web hosts in their portfolio. Okay, so they own a lot of different web hosts. They just buy web hosts, so they kind of try to corner the market. I had used HostGator. I was happy for a while, and then only in the last few years, I was not very happy. They raised prices. The service wasn't very great afterwards, and they didn't have a lot of features that were necessary to have nowadays. So they were really starting to fall behind. And if you actually do some search, you're going to see a lot of complaints about Bluehost too. Okay, so they really are aggressive in their marketing and promotions. They try to really sell really cheap looking shared hosting, but it's very misleading. And thus goes to the next thing I want to talk about is their pricing presentation. So what you can see here, it looks like it two something per month. That looks really cheap, right? Especially if you're first starting up. But what it actually is the catch is that you actually have to sign up with them for almost 2 years up front. And then it works out to being, two something per month spread out over 2 years. Okay, so you got to really delve deep into the terms and how they're presenting their pricing. I don't really like the way they kind of present it like that. The other thing is, this point is, don't get fooled by the way web hosts sell their features. Okay, they'll talk about, let's go to Bluehost then. Okay, I don't want Chinese. I really hate this too when they do IP redirections. Okay. So here they are targeting China. So here the features that they're trying to promote is unlimited domains, unlimited data transfer, unlimited space. That is a load of BS. And why is that? Is because, as I mentioned in the previous lesson about web hosting, if you're on shared hosting, you're sharing that same server with a whole bunch of other customers. Now, if every one of you have like 10, 20, 50 different websites, each customer on the same machine, your websites on that machine is going to be really slow. And what will happen is if any one of those customers, they don't keep their websites updated and then their website gets hacked, that means it compromises that entire server that all these other customers are on. So if you look at the fine print, it's actually not unlimited space, not unlimited data transfer, etc. Okay, that's just a way of spinning the marketing message. Now, I'm a marketer by trade, so I don't think there's anything wrong with marketing. Marketing is very important, but I just don't like the way they present it in this way. Especially if you're first starting out, you're going to get sort of fooled by these sort of features because you're not going to really be running unlimited domains and have unlimited data transfer or space on those servers. Space will run out. Okay, the way they're betting on is that they know roughly on average how much space an average user or customer will end up using up on a server. So that's why they can sort of make these sort of claims. Okay, but don't really go for that. So those are things to be aware of. Okay. Okay, so in the last lesson, we looked at what not to do when it comes to selecting your web hosting service. So in this one, let's look at what should you do? What should you be looking for? The first thing you want to look at is unbiased reviews. Okay, that will make a big difference, but a lot of times people that have a lot of credibility and making honest and clear suggestions, they may be making a commission as well. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that, like I said. As long as you believe you can trust that person or that source, then great, no problem. Now, a lot of good source for this is you can actually join relevant Facebook groups to get decent and honest recommendations, because a lot of Facebook groups don't allow affiliate links. Okay. So what you want to look for is also a history of excellent customer support, because that's one of the biggest things, especially if you're new to this as well, or you're not very tech savvy, then you're going to be relying on their tech support. So if they have lousy tech support, or if for whatever reason your website is down or there's some sort of problem, that is going to be lost money for you. So you want fast and competent support from that web hosting company. You want to check and see if you can find out if that web host, if you're starting a shared web hosting plan, that's okay, that's no problem. Just try to find out whether or not they overload their servers with a lot of customers. Okay, a lot of decent and good web hosting companies that sell shared web hosting will not overload their servers with tons of customers. Okay, there are a lot of good companies out there that don't do that. Okay, so and I'll give my suggestions later, but that's up to you to choose whether you listen to it or not. The other thing is, these days, in this day and age, a website will need to have SSL support. Okay, that's where your website has HTTPS. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that is an important element that you must have now. And there is a free open source, vendor that offers this type of SSL certificate, which is more of a verification of your site ownership. And this is free to use. Okay, so most websites, not doing anything overly complicated, this will be more than enough. Okay, if you're doing some sort of e-commerce, you may need something a little bit more that's paid, but otherwise, using Let's Encrypt SSL, which is free and open source, is perfectly fine. Now, the reason why I mentioned this is because not all web hosts support this. And I mentioned before I was using HostGator, and one of the biggest reasons why I moved away from them is because they didn't support Let's Encrypt at all. Not even like allowing for customers to try to set it up. My suggestions later is just easily done almost automatically, just with one click. So it's very painless. HostGator did not do that. Okay, so at least at this time of publishing, HostGator at this time does not support this, as far as I know. Okay. Okay, in this lesson, I'm going to give you my recommendations and suggestions for web hosts. Now, there are literally hundreds and thousands of different type of web hosts out there, and there's plenty that are perfectly fine. These are just the ones that I've found to work for me and a lot of other people as well. So you can either go with the suggestion or you can go with your own, as long as you do your own due diligence. Not every web host is going to satisfy everybody, so you won't find anyone that has 100% satisfaction rate. So go with the one that works best for you. So the first one I would recommend is SiteGround. This is good for if you're first starting out, or if your site traffic is relatively low, then this is a really good one to start with, and I'll tell you why. It's really also good for if you're just starting out as a developer as well. So one of the great things is they offer pretty good service, very fast and responsive, and pretty knowledgeable. Knowledgeable service is one of the key elements there. You'll find that some other web hosts, their customer service can really lack a lot of knowledge, or they have really no idea what they're talking about. The other thing is you'll find on a lot of WordPress or web development Facebook groups, a lot of people are recommending them because, and that's without getting anything in return. Okay, so that kind of tells you how good of a web host they are. Their packages are not necessarily the cheapest, but they're also not the most expensive, but they offer a pretty good value for the price for what you get. Next thing is they have very good features. So like I said, good value for the price. And I host a lot of my own sites here, and it just works. Now, if your site is a bit more established, you have a lot more traffic to it, or your business is more established and you have a heavier load and requirements, then I definitely recommend WP Engine. And reason why is they specialize in WordPress hosting only. Now you may wonder what's the difference between a normal web hosting and WordPress hosting. Now WordPress as a platform has certain specifications and configurations that will need to be optimized for a WordPress site to run really well and fast. And that's what they specifically do. So all their servers are set up specifically to host a WordPress site. Now, even if you're on a hosting plan that's not specifically for WordPress, most plans will support it without many problems. Only if you find like certain things that aren't working, like plugins, or if the speed is somehow very slow, then you can talk to your web host and see if they can tweak some settings for you to make a difference. If not, then you can always consider a WordPress specific web host, such as WP Engine. Like I said, they're better for larger or more traffic sites because the cost is a little bit more, as I said, more expensive. Also, the other thing is they also garner a lot of referrals and very good positive reviews in the WordPress and web development Facebook groups, and even on other discussion groups. So basically, you can't really go wrong with either of these two, but you don't have to for this particular course. But these are the two that I would recommend. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about domain registration. Now, a lot of you, especially if you're first starting out, you'll notice that a lot of your web hosting packages will include a one domain registration. My recommendation is that you don't use that free domain registration, or even if you do, move it off your web host as soon as you can. So the reason why is, and this theme is going to be something that I'll be talking about throughout the entire course, is keeping in mind single point of failure. So what happens is, if your domain is also registered through your web host, if anything happens to your web hosting account, you also lose access to your domain. Okay, so you want to be able to move your domain anywhere you want. So that means hosting it at any host you want. What happens if you're registering it through your web host? Your web host is probably technically owning that domain, but if you want to move away from the web host, you need to ask them to move the domain for you as well to another registrar, domain registrar. So you may as well do that on your own, because I have seen problems in the past where they either hold you up, or in some cases, if it's a really bad web host, then they may not even transfer the domain back to you. Okay, so I always recommend registering with a separate registrar. Okay, and my preferred registrar is Namecheap. Is my first preference. I pretty much have all my domains here now. GoDaddy is fine. I used to use them as well initially. The only thing with GoDaddy is don't go for all their other upsells, whether it's web hosting, marketing, email marketing, newsletters, that sort of feature. Don't go for, they do a ton of upsells, which is fine, but their service for all those other features is really sucks. So don't go with any other features there. Just they're perfectly fine for domain registration. But my preferred one is Namecheap, and if you do, go with Namecheap, and I'll have the URL listed here as well and below. When you do register with Namecheap, if you're registering a brand new domain, go to namecheapcoupons.com, and there's always a monthly discount code there you can use for a brand new domain registration. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about email hosting. Now, why would I talk about email hosting when in 100% of cases your email is also hosted or included with your web hosting account? Now, the reason I tell all clients to separate their email hosting from their web hosting account is this, and I mentioned this in the previous domain registration lessons, and that's all about single point of failure, and I found this out the hard way. So what happened was, the very first time I was using a web hosting, our web host had gone down, and it was down for pretty much most of the day, if not a couple of days, I think. And what happened was, because our email was also hosted with the web host, that meant all our emails were not coming through. So we weren't able to send or receive email. So that is a very big problem, especially if you're running a business. So that's why I talk about single point of failure throughout. And really, most cases, you don't want to be hosting your email with your web hosting account either, because it also, all the storage from your email, especially when you have receive a lot of attachments, it also goes towards your storage restrictions and limits on your web hosting account. Okay, so that's actually all under your web hosting storage space. So that's why you want to separate it as well. So this way, if anything happens with your web hosting, or if you want to change your web host, your email or your business email is not affected. At least, even if your website is down, you can still send and receive email to your clients and prospects. So that's a very important element to keep in mind, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I always tell people to always have a separate email host. And the other thing is, email hosting doesn't cost very much at all. Okay, so it's not a lot of additional expense or cost to you, but it will, if your email is, if you can't send or receive email, you're probably going to lose more money there than from saving the few dollars extra you'll need for separating your email hosting. Okay, in this lesson, I'm going to give you my preferred email host, and that is under G Suite, or Google. It used to be known as Google Apps. So this is the Google sort of Office suite for Google for Work offering. And the reason there's actually a ton of other email hosts available that are really good as well, but I prefer using a Gmail email interface, because primarily you can run a lot of more automations through the Gmail interface, and that's going to help you be more productive and save a lot of time, because a lot of the other email interfaces that I've worked with are just they're just not as good, and you can't run as many automations as you can with the Gmail interface. So I've got a link here and a link below. Definitely, this is my preferred email hosting. Okay, here I'm going to show you how to set up a G Suite or Gmail for Work or Google Apps for your email hosting. If you've signed up for G Suite, they will also include instructions for how to set up your Gmail or your work email through G Suite. But here I'm going to show you the easy way if you're using SiteGround as your web host. So here I'm in the C panel for my web hosting account. And then if you search, if we go down to the mail section here, you want to go into the MX entry. Okay, and then you can select the domain if you have multiple domains hosted on your account. So select the appropriate one. Okay. So here you'll see the existing MX records, and these are basically just tells the internet where your email should be directed or routed, who's going to be handling your email hosting. So normally once you sign up, you won't have these details in here as it is here, because I've already got it set up as Gmail, hosting with G Suite, so it looks like this. So, but if you're using SiteGround, all you need to do to set it up is just click on this Set Google MX setting, and it will automatically set up your MX records to point to the Google or G Suite email servers, and that's all you have to do. And then you just go log into your G Suite administration area, start creating new email accounts. Okay, so that's the easy way. The manual way is you just follow the instructions as they tell you when you log into the G Suite administration area when you're setting up the Gmail section. Okay, but if you're using SiteGround, then this is really the easiest way. It'll just take like 1 or 2 clicks and you're already going to be set up. So that kind of shows you one of the other reasons why I like using SiteGround and the G Suite email hosting. It's just very easy to set up. And as you can see, since this is the only other option that gives you a one-click setup, this is the most popular, one of the most popular options for a lot of people for hosting their email outside of their web host. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to start looking at how to install WordPress on your web host. And in this particular course, I'm going to show you 2 different ways. The first one will be through a one-click installation. That's the easiest way. And then I'm going to show you the manual installation, which is a little bit more technical, but also is not too difficult. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to go through the one-click installation for WordPress. So again, we're inside our cPanel area for our SiteGround web hosting account. If you scroll down to the WordPress tools section here, just click on the WordPress installer. Okay. And here it'll tell you how much space is required, how much space you have on your web hosting account. So it's more than enough. So let's just click on Install Now. Okay, so here it'll just ask you some questions. So this will be your domain. Now it'll ask you if your site has SSL or not, okay, or HTTP, etc. Here we'll talk about the SSL a bit later, but in this case, if you're on SiteGround, you can go ahead and choose this one, okay, with the www. I like to have the www in front of my domain, but if you don't want to have it, you can set it up so that it is just your domain.com instead of www.com, but I like to set it up like that. And here, if you have multiple domains on your account, you can choose the appropriate domain here. Now, in the directory, you need to make sure that this directory within your domain does not exist yet, okay? So let's just see here. If you're installing on your main domain, so that's what we call the root of your domain, then you don't need to fill in anything here. But in this situation, because I'm setting it up on our main domain here of virtualtree.com, I'm going to set it up in a folder called test demo. Okay, so just got to make sure that this folder does not exist here. Now, if you want to have it set up on your main domain, then you don't have to put anything in here. So the next section here, your site name, you can just call it, whatever your website is called or your business name is. So this is my test site. And then my test site. Here, it'll ask you if you want to enable multi-site. I generally don't use multi-site, so just leave that unchecked. And then here, this is where you enter your username, your admin username. So this is the main administrator to log into your WordPress website. So here you want to jot down what your username is. There is a limit to how long your username can be. So let's just, I don't know, T. Okay. And here, in this one-click install feature, it'll actually work out generate a password for you. Usually, you probably don't want to be using a password that's too easy to guess or hack, and that's where a lot of problems, a lot of people will have problems with their WordPress site getting hacked, is using a password that's too easy to crack. So use something that is strong. I can generally use the one that they suggest here, and then just make sure you copy and paste it, and hopefully you're using a password manager type of tool like KeePass or LastPass. Then that'll make things easier to remember. So your email, the language for your site, in this case we'll leave it at English. Select any additional plugins. We don't really need these ones, so I'll leave this blank. Choose your theme. We'll talk about this later, so we don't want to install any other theme at this moment. Additional options. These you can pretty much leave alone. This is if you're getting really more technical, if you want to change the name of your database and the prefix for the database, but that gets into a lot more technical details which you don't really need to worry about. So you can just skip all of that, and then you just click install. Okay, so you can see here the installation was successful. Okay, and you want to jot this URL down as well. So this is where you log into your WordPress admin site. So in general, it'll be wherever your domain, and if you installed it in a separate folder, if not, it'll be wherever you installed WordPress, and then /wp-admin. That's where you usually log in. So let's have a look here. Okay, so you can see it's already logged me in as well, and your WordPress site is already up and running, ready to go. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about SSL, or having the HTTPS for your domain. So what does SSL stand for? It stands for Secure Sockets Layer. So it's a type of encryption, a secure encryption when you send data or information between your web browser and the web server or the website that you're visiting. Okay, so why do you need it, or why is it important nowadays? First of all, Google has already said that any website or domain that does not have this HTTPS, or a secure encryption between a person visiting your website and your web server, then they will start to show warning messages. Okay, and it will most likely mean your website won't show up as high in Google search results. Now, if you're using the Chrome browser, it's going to even show even a lot more worse, very scary looking error messages saying this site is not secure. So it's going to scare visitors off from visiting your website if you don't have this. So that's why it's very, very important now. And especially, and Google said that if you collect visitors' information, like collecting an email address or other personal information, then you have to have they would highly recommend that you have this working on your website. Okay. The other thing is if you have any sort of e-commerce or payment type of page on your website, say if you're using Stripe as your payment processor, then Stripe also requires that whatever payment page on your website that is using Stripe has to have this SSL enabled. Okay, so that's why it's extremely important nowadays that you have this. And that's also one of the reasons why I recommended SiteGround or WP Engine previously, because they include this for free in their account. Normally, depending on your needs, but most people will just need a very basic SSL offering enabled, and you don't need to, and there's a lot of paid SSL certificates available, and that's only if you're doing a very heavy e-commerce type of business where you need to have a lot of trust seals that you can use. Otherwise, just the basic free SSL that's offered by Let's Encrypt, which we'll talk about later, is more than enough for pretty much 90% of people out there. Okay, so here's our test WordPress site that we installed, and here you can see the example here. Whoops. Here you can see the example here where we have automatically, we already have an SSL certificate installed for this domain. So here you can see when we enter our website address, it's got the HTTPS here, and also, and I'm using Chrome web browser here. You can see here it's got this lock, green padded lock here, and it says secure. So that's what you want to see for your website. Here's an example of a website that does not have the HTTPS or SSL certificate here. And here in the Chrome browser, it'll tell you, if you click on this, your connection to this site is not secure. Okay, so you don't want to have that showing for your website. So you can see here it tells you you should not enter any sensitive information on this site, etc., because it could be stolen by attackers. Now, if a visitor sees this type of message, on your website, what is that going to tell them? That's going to really scare them off, right? So that's why it's really important that you want to have this SSL or HTTPS showing for your website. Okay, here I'm going to show you how to set up your Let's Encrypt SSL secure sockets layer certificate for your domain. Now, again, I'm using, assuming if you have a SiteGround web hosting account, they include this for free. It's very easy to set up. Other hosts do support it, but it may not be as easy to set up. I know certain web hosts. I was using HostGator before, and at this time, they actually still don't support Let's Encrypt certificates because they're trying to push people to the paid certificates, which you don't really always need. So once you're logged into your cPanel in your SiteGround account, you scroll down to the security section and then click on Let's Encrypt. And here it'll show you all the existing certificates that you have for existing domains. In this case, I don't have the option to install a new certificate, but in this section here, there'll be a drop down to ask you if you want to install a new SSL certificate. And then you can choose the domain in that drop down menu, and then it'll just automatically set it up for you. And the thing with the Let's Encrypt certificate is you need to renew it every 90 days. But you don't have to worry about it because SiteGround's account feature here will automatically renew it for you. So you don't really have to do anything. So you just need to keep an eye on it. That's all you have to do. And that's really all there is to do it. That's why it's so easy to set it up here. And one of the reasons why I like using a SiteGround account, because it makes all of these things a lot easier, and because it can be very time consuming if you want to set it up manually. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to look at the general settings and configuration for your WordPress site before you start doing anything else. So here we've logged into your WordPress admin section. If you let's go to settings, and we're going to go through all of these settings here first. So let's go to general. So here you can see the title of your site, the tagline. So this is what we entered when we first installed it. So if you want to make a change here, you can make that change here as well. Here, this is your WordPress URL and your site URL. In most cases, both of these will be the same, but in very specific circumstances, as it mentions here, it may be slightly different, but I think for probably 99% of you, it'll probably be the same. So here you don't want to mess around too much with this. Okay, so here, membership part. This means that anybody can register on your website, say to write a comment, okay? So at the moment, by default, it's unchecked. But if you want people to be able to comment on your blog posts or anything like that, in general, by default, then you can check this if you want. New user default role, usually you can leave these default settings as it is, just leave it as subscriber. Here, the time zone, you can set your specific time zone, and the date format that you prefer, the time format, etc. And you can save changes, but most cases you don't really, there's nothing really you need to change here. The next section is on the writing. So again, here you can set your preferences. Maybe you have a certain category that your blog post will fall under automatically, or that's the one that the category you use the most. So you can enter that here if you want. Some cases you may want to have the ability to post a blog post via email. So you can also set that up here. But in general, I don't really use this, so I generally leave this as it is. So the next section is important. The reading setting. Sorry. So you can also check this as well. Now, in some cases, you may, if it's say it's like a membership site, if it's separate and you don't want search engines to find it, then you can check this if you want. Otherwise, just leave it unchecked. Discussion. Here again, you can, depending on if you want people to be able to comment on your blog posts and pages, then you can change these settings as you see fit. Again, in most cases, I kind of leave this as it is. Next one for media. Again, here, I don't really change any of these default settings. Again, you can change these if you want, according to your own preferences. I generally leave these as is. Now, permalinks, this part is important. By default, WordPress will publish your pages and blog posts as this type of format. So it'll organize it by a date, the year, the month, and the day, and then the name of your post. Okay, some people like that, some people don't. For me, I prefer to select list setting so it shows as your domain and then the title of the URL for your post or page, and that's a lot better for SEO purposes. So I'll save that. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to go to pages. So there's no pages here, so what we want to do is we need to create 2 pages. Okay, so we click on add new. So here we're just going to call this home page for now, and then you can click publish, and then we want to add one more page. Oops. Publish, and then we want to add one more page, and that we'll call blog. Okay. I generally will leave this. You can change the link if you want to change your blogs or the URL, but for this particular one I usually leave it as blog, and you'll see why afterwards. So we'll publish this. Now we need to go back to settings and go down to reading. So you can see here in the reading settings, this additional part has come up. So depending on what your preference is, you can either have your main homepage, or when people type in your main domain, they can either see just a list of your latest blog posts, or you can have a separate homepage. Okay, and in general, I'd like to have a separate page, so that's why I'll select this. And then here you can select your home page as being what we created, the 2 pages we created just right now, home page, and then your blog post page will be this page. Okay, and then you want to save it. And these are the main settings that you need to get set up initially before we start doing anything else. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about WordPress themes and plugins. So we'll talk about themes first. Now, the beautiful thing about WordPress is that WordPress is started off as it's what's called a content management system, or a CMS. And what that actually does is its main function is to separate the content, so your text writing, your images and stuff, from the actual design of your website. So you can think of your theme as is the design or the skin or clothing for your website. So you can change your skin or design or clothing whenever you want to a different design without it affecting the content of your site. So back in the old days, before WordPress or any content management system, if you were designing a straight up HTML site, whenever you change your design, it would probably also affect the way your content is presented as well, or you would have to update and revise each page individually, whereas with a system like a CMS like WordPress, you can just change different themes without it affecting anything else in terms of your content. And here we're logged into your WordPress site, your admin area, and if you scroll on the left hand side to Appearance and Themes, this is where you can interchange and install various themes for your WordPress site. So you can see here, these are the ones. I have 3 already installed in here, and if you wanted to add a new one, you can just click on Add Theme, and then you can choose from a lot of various free themes here, but we're going to be working with a specific one, which I'll talk about later. Okay, in this lesson I'm going to show you how to install a new theme. So here we are in the themes section of your WordPress site. I'll show you a couple of different ways. So if you're going to use one of the free available themes in the WordPress marketplace, let's just choose one here. Let's use this one. Okay, so we just click on install. Okay, so you can see here that now it's installed the theme in your WordPress theme section. Now it's not activated yet. Okay, so currently I've got this one activated, and this is going to be the one that we're going to be using going forward, but I wanted to show you how to install one from the general marketplace. So this is the one we just installed. So you can see it's not activated yet. So if you want to have a look at some of the details, you can just click here, or you can do a preview of what it would look like on your site before you actually activate it. Okay, so this will give you a rough idea of what it'll look like with your current site. So the other way of adding a new theme, so let's say you purchase a theme or you downloaded it for a particular theme, so in this case we're using the Astra theme. You can click on Add New Theme. And we're back here in the Add Theme section. So we want to upload a theme. So you've already saved a file. So here you're going to choose the file. And here we have, I've already saved and downloaded and saved the Astra theme here. And it will be in a zip file format. So you don't need to unzip this, just upload the zip file itself. Now in this case, I've already installed it. And then you would just click install now, okay? And then it will just do the same thing, install the theme. So I won't do that here because we've already installed it. And then whichever theme you want to activate or use, then you just click on the activate button on the theme that you want to use. And that's all you do. Now if you start installing a whole bunch of themes, it's going to start taking up storage space. So if you've got themes that you don't want to be using, so in this case I don't want this anymore, I just click delete. Same with this one here, we don't need this. And then this will help save some space in your installation and keep it running a little bit more smoothly. And that's how you install a new WordPress theme. Okay, in this lesson we're going to talk about WordPress plugins. So plugins basically add additional functionality to the basic WordPress site. So something, so for example, say WooCommerce adds e-commerce functionality. So it's just really, and the majority of plugins are made by third-party developers. So you want to be careful in terms of what you're adding in terms of plugins. And the other thing is you don't want to add too many plugins, okay, because it will slow your site down. Also, when it comes to plugins made by third-party developers, you want to make sure that they are regularly updated. Okay, if you see a plugin that hasn't been updated in probably more than a few months or even up to a year or more, then you don't want to install it because it's most likely hasn't been kept up to date, and it's probably the project has been abandoned. So it could leave your website vulnerable to hackers. Okay, so here we're back in your WordPress admin site. So let's scroll down and look at the plugins. Let's add a new plugin. So here you can see a listing or a marketplace for a whole bunch of WordPress plugins. And the easy thing here is that you can just start search if you know what you're looking for, or you can start entering keywords. So let's say we want to look for this Yoast SEO, which is a popular plugin. So you can see here it shows up here. So you can start choosing which plugins you want to install. It gives you like a whole bunch of information. So you can see how many people have installed it, how popular it is, its reviews, who it's made by, what more details about it, what it does. Okay. And then if it's a plugin you want to install, then you just click on install now and then let it install. And so it's fairly straightforward in terms of installing plugins from the WordPress repository. If you're installing a plugin that isn't, for whatever reason, available on the repository here, then you would just go to the upload plugin and then choose file again. So again, as it says here, it's going to be saved in a zip format, so you don't need to decompress it or unzip that file. So it's the same as installing a theme. You just upload the zip file of your plugin. And one thing I would recommend is if you go to the installed plugins, if you have any plugins that are deactivated or no longer in use, just be sure to remove them and delete them, so that because if you're not using it and you're not updating it, then it could be a plugin that's not being updated and could leave your website vulnerable to hackers. So always remove plugins that you're not using or no longer in use. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the must-have WordPress plugins that I install and recommend clients install on every WordPress installation. Okay, so we already talked about plugins, and they add functionality to your WordPress site. So the very first thing that I would install is the security plugin. So it offers security and scanning for malware if your WordPress site gets hacked. Now the one probably disadvantage or fault, if you can say, about WordPress is because it's such a popular platform, it also attracts a lot of attention from hackers. So if you don't, if your WordPress site isn't updated or secured, then it is very vulnerable to hackers and malware. Okay, so you definitely need to install some kind of security plugin to help keep things secure and less vulnerable. The next plugin is the Yoast SEO plugin. And this is a very popular plugin to help you with your search engine optimization for your WordPress site. Okay, so for any website, your SEO is always going to be a very important long-term game plan and strategy. So the next plugin I recommend is using Updraft Plus. What this plugin does is it does backups for you of your WordPress site. Now, every time backing up your WordPress site is extremely important, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later down in the course. I've used other backup plugins, but I found that Updraft seems to be works better for me. I kind of prefer this one much better. But there are other backup plugins which you can consider. But this is also one is very popular, and I found it to be a bit more reliable and just better functioning for myself. And then the final plugin is called Jetpack, and this is actually a plugin that's actually now owned and managed by Automatic, which is the company that created WordPress platform. So it's tightly integrated with the WordPress platform. And what it does is it adds other additional features, which I will talk about in just a minute. Okay, so here we are back in our WordPress installation, and we're in the plugins section. Now, when we did the one-click installation within our SiteGround cPanel web hosting account, it automatically installs these two plugins as well. So normally if you're doing a manual installation, you will not see these two plugins installed. You will have to manually install them. So I talked about the Jetpack plugin, and you can see here that it is created, or at least now owned by Automatic, which is the company that also produces WordPress. So let's just go through. What I'll do is I'll install the other plugins that we talked about. So the first one I talked about was Security. So again, this is the main security plugin that I've gone with now. I've tried other plugins. You'll probably see WordFence being tossed around, which is also a very popular security plugin for WordPress. What I found is WordFence tends to have a lot of issues and conflicts with other plugins and themes, so I have since moved away, but it is a good one. You just have to be careful sometimes with some of its settings. But so far I found that security tends to be a little bit better and less issues for me at least. So let's just install that. Okay, and let's activate that. Okay, so you can see here the security plugin is now installed and activated. So the next one we're going to install is the Yoast SEO. Okay, here it is here. So you can see here it's very popular. There's over 1 million installations and just over 19,000 reviews, and they're all 5 stars. Okay, we'll activate the Yoast SEO. Okay, and then let's install the final plugin, must-have plugin, and that is Updraft Plus. Okay, and here you can see here again another also a very popular plugin, over 1 million installations. So let's install that, and let's activate that as well. Okay, so now we have installed our must-have plugins here. Okay, in this lesson I'm going to talk about the Jetpack plugin settings. So here, so in the last one we installed all our must-have plugins. So let's go to Jetpack, have a look at Jetpack here. Okay, so in order to use Jetpack, you will need to create a free account with Jetpack or on WordPress.com website. Okay, and this will open up some additional features, a lot of them for free. And there are some features, additional features that may require a fee, but that's up to you whether you want to do that. But for our purposes, we can make do with all the free settings. So let's just set up Jetpack first. Okay, so here I have logged in, entered my details, my WordPress.com or Jetpack account details, and just click on Approve. Okay, so here you can see they are trying to upsell you on some of the premium features. You don't need to do that. You want to just, let's see here, start with free. Click on this. And now it takes you back to your website. Okay, so you can see here, now here they're gonna, what they had done here is they've made it, they've got some recommended features that they'll try to get you to activate. We don't want to do that. We want to go through it ourselves. Let's just, okay, so let's just close that. And the next thing we want to do is we want to go to settings. So here we're going to activate the ones that we want. Okay, so we'll move through all the settings here. Okay, actually, whoops, we don't want to activate that. Okay, so here composing, you can leave this as the default settings, that's fine. Media, display images and galleries in a gorgeous full screen browsing experience. I like to use this. This is actually a pretty decent feature, so we can activate that. In our case, we don't need to show any photo metadata. Okay, probably if you're a photographer or photography service, then you might want to be activate this particular setting, but in probably majority of cases, you don't need this, or this subsetting rather. Okay, speeding up your site. So we don't. What Jetpack offers is what's called a content distribution network, or CDN. Okay, so what they would mean here by serving images from their servers is they will duplicate all the images that you upload to your WordPress site onto their servers, and then they will serve the images to your visitors in various locations around the world, so that wherever your visitors are, the images will be downloaded and served and displayed much quicker. And it'll reduce the load on your own web server, and all in all, in the end, it'll increase the speed of your site. Now, I've tried using this before, and it's caused some problems with the website, so I don't use their particular service. We will talk about CDNs just a little bit later and how to speed up your WordPress site, but I tend not to like to use their image or service. Okay, so I'll leave that off. Here you can activate this lazy load images. Okay, because WordPress sites, what's important nowadays is how fast your website will load. Okay, so anything that you can do to increase the speed that your website displays for visitors is good. In this case, I'll usually activate this part. Custom content types, this is up to you. So if you're an artist or a photographer, you could activate the portfolio's custom content type. Okay, but in our case, we don't need this. Okay, so again, that's up to you. If you want to activate this, what it'll do is create a separate item on this menu here called portfolio, and you can add photos and stuff and galleries and stuff like that. Okay. Theme enhancements. We don't need to do anything here. Again, you don't want to activate this part, the mobile theme. We will be talking about that a little bit later with the theme that we're going to be using. Post by email, this is up to you again. Some people might want to be able to, if maybe you're on your mobile and you don't have access to a laptop or a computer, and you want to, publish a blog post, you can just send an email that will automatically publish a blog post on your website. Okay, so that's up to you if you want to use this feature. Okay, so the next thing we will do is go to sharing. Okay, so they've automatically activated the publicize setting, and I'll show you what that is in a second. Sharing buttons, this will show the Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Plus sharing buttons on your posts and pages. So if your theme doesn't come with that, or you don't have a plugin to use that, you could automatically use this one. I don't particularly like this, the way they activate this, so I actually don't use this one. Okay. Here you can also choose to add a like button for your posts, just like a Facebook type of thing, which is slightly different from the sharing buttons. So you can choose to activate this or not. I'll usually use this as well. So this way you can get gauge what your visitors like. Say if you're blogging, then if you have a like button, they can just show whether they like that article or blog post that you posted. Then you can get an idea of what people are responding to, what your visitors are responding to. Okay. Okay. Let's just move over to a blog post so that I can show you what this publicize means. Okay. First thing you need to do is go connect to your social media accounts. Okay, so here you can connect your Facebook account, Twitter account, LinkedIn, etc. You just need to click on connect, and then it'll ask you to log into, say, Facebook, etc. Let's see here. Okay, so you can activate whichever social media accounts you want. The limitation with the publicize feature here is that it is only limited to these ones. So obviously you can see they don't have Pinterest or Instagram or anything like that here. So you may want to use something else to do their social sharing. Okay, let's just go back here. So what this actually shows is let's take a look at this blog post here. So in the publicize setting is this right here. Okay, let's just show. So if you had connected or logged into your Facebook account or Twitter account, it will also have some check boxes here so that when you publish a blog post, it will automatically also post to your Facebook profile or page and to your Twitter account and whatever else you have activated. Okay, so it automates that posting for you. So that's a nice handy feature for you. But again, if you want other social media accounts available, then you may need to look at another plugin to help you do that. And if you use another plugin for that, remember to disable the setting in Jetpack, okay? Because you don't want to have this duplicated. Okay, so let's go to the discussion settings. Here, if you want people to be commenting on your blog post, you can activate this as well so that they can either use a WordPress account or Twitter or Facebook, etc. to log in and comment. Again, you can go through these settings and see which ones you like to use or not. I tend not to use this part, the gravatars. You can keep this if you want. Traffic. Okay, there's related posts. So if you want to, at the bottom of your blog post, if you want to, this is a good feature to use if you want to keep people on your blog and website to increase your page views and keep them on your site reading other articles. You can activate this if you want. So it'll show related blog posts at the very bottom of your blog post. We can activate this as well. So you have a couple of settings that you can choose. So say in this setting, it'll include images as well. So this makes it a bit more striking and stands out a bit. Okay. Let's see, next one. So because we have our Yoast SEO plugin installed, you don't want to activate this. Okay, we'll talk about what XML sitemaps are. Okay, and let's go to security. Brute force attack, we can leave this on. And you can choose to activate this or not. This is really up to you. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so that's pretty much all the settings that we'll be using for Jetpack. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to go through the security settings plugin. So now, after we've installed security, let's go down here on this to the security menu. Let's just have a quick look at the dashboard. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is let's go to generate API key. Okay, so you'll need this in order to activate additional features for the security website. This is plugin, sorry. This is free. So you just need to enter your email, and it'll automatically use your email that you use for your admin account. And you can just click submit. Okay, and that's all. It's already ready to go. So what's happened? So you can see here, that's the API key. Okay, so that has activated a whole bunch of other features. Okay. Scanner. So here you can Security can scan your WordPress site for any sort of malware or virus. Okay. In most cases, I don't really change any of these settings. Hardening, this will help secure your WordPress site even more, but there are a lot of cautionary notifications about this if you do this. So let's see here. In most cases, I will leave this unless if you get hacked. Then if there's some vulnerable plugins that you have, then you might want to activate this setting and the WP content setting and the WP include setting. But if you block that, then when you update and add new plugins and themes, then it could hinder those actions. Okay, so you might have to deactivate that whenever you update or install a new plugin. So that's something to be aware of. So I usually leave this as the default settings first, unless if you have any sort of problems afterwards. So in post hack, here you can leave these again. Okay. The good thing with these plugins is it's pretty clear and very self-explanatory, even if you don't have much technical knowledge. So I tend to leave most of these settings on default. So alerts, what you might want to adjust the settings here. So what happens is security would automatically send you email notifications for different actions that happen on your site. Okay. So here you can control how many email alerts you receive, because what you'll find is you probably get quite a few alerts. So security alerts, they've already activated a number of default alerts for you, which they feel are pretty important, but that's up to you, because what you'll find is you're going to receive quite a number of email alerts throughout the day. So you want to see which ones are important for you to know and which ones aren't. I guess it'll vary by person. So all I can say is I won't tell you which ones you should and shouldn't activate, because I think it really depends on the person and whoever's administering your site. Okay, so I think that you can always stick with the default ones that they have already checked for you. And then if you're finding that it's just getting to be too much, then you can come back in here in security alerts and deactivate the ones that you don't really feel like you need to be receiving. Okay. API service. So here you can just ignore all of these, keep these on the default settings. Here it just gives you the information about your web server environment where your WordPress site is installed. Okay. That's pretty much it. You don't really need to do anything else with this. Pretty much, so basically with the security plugin, you can pretty much leave most of the default settings as is, and then just go back in and tweak it as you go along. Okay, in this lesson we're going to talk about the Yoast SEO settings or plugin settings. So we're in the plugins section, we can go to settings. If you want to find it, the SEO settings, not from here, you can also go here on the left-hand menu and start there as well. Let's just go to settings. Okay, so what it can, the Yoast SEO plugin will know if this is your first time in here setting up the plugin. You can choose to either go through the configuration wizard or not. If if you're used to setting this up, then you don't really need to go through that. I'll skip that. Okay. So let's just go through each of the features here. So what this does here is the title separator. So at the very top here, you can see what they're talking about is that little hyphen or the bar that separates the title of the page or post, and it'll have you include your website name from your settings here that you've entered. Okay, so you can choose to either use, some people like to use this as well, the pipe character, or you can use any of these bars. Let's say I like to use this one. Okay, so in this case, knowledge graph, you can choose whether you're a company or maybe it's a personal blog. Okay, so here we'll set company. So here you can enter your name and upload a logo as well. We won't do that here at the moment. And then save changes. Okay. Next one, we'll move to content types. Show posts and search results, we'll leave it as yes. This is the title template. Usually that's pretty much the default setting is fine. So all of these you can pretty much leave as is. Media, because usually the SEO plugin or Yoast SEO plugin, it'll activate the recommended settings that they would normally recommend an average site to use. So in most cases, you don't need to tweak it too much. So taxonomies, you can leave this as well. Okay. Yeah, these are all things I would leave. Archives, again, I would leave this as well. Breadcrumbs. What breadcrumbs is basically you'll see little menu links in a site. So if you start digging deeper into a website, it'll have like home, the category of your post, and then your post link here. Though that's what called breadcrumbs are. In most cases, you don't need to enable it here. Some of your themes may include that, but some people like to have this, some people don't. So that's up to you whether you want to enable this or not. I tend not to use this. RSS, we can leave this as well. Okay, so Search Console, this means you can get more data from entering your Google Search Console account details here. And we'll talk about that later in the tracking section. So you can choose to integrate that or not. Here again, if you have your various social profiles, you can enter them here as well. Okay, here again we can leave all of these. So they also offer premium features, so you can see whether you want to upgrade for that or not. It works fine with the free version. So let's see here. Let's just go to Webmaster Tools. Okay, here again, you can integrate with these various Webmaster tools. Features, okay, let's see here, XML, okay. So they've already activated all of these settings on their own, so you can just leave those there, okay? And we talked about XML sitemaps. So Jetpack offered to activate this. So that's why we didn't activate that in Jetpack. We'll do this here in Yoast SEO, okay? So this is what, and we'll talk about this a bit later, again, in the tracking and measurement section. We'll come back to this a little bit later. Okay, but that's pretty much it for the Yoast SEO plugin. Again, you can see most of it, you can leave the default settings on. There's not much you really have to play around with, but I just wanted to walk through it quickly with you. Okay, here so we've already activated the Yoast SEO plugin, and here we're just inside the editing of a post as an example. And if you scroll down here, you will see now that there is this Yoast SEO widget. Now that has been added to all of your web posts. Okay, so this will help you focus on what you need to do to optimize your search engine optimization or SEO text to optimize your post for search engine optimization. It helps you. What's good is that you can see here, Yoast plugin will give you tips on how to improve your post for SEO purposes here. So the areas that you'll be focusing on are here, entering what your focus keyword is. You can also edit. This is the SEO title. It'll just pull the default title of your post usually. This is the slug or the URL for your post. Here you can change this meta description, which is what's found here, which is what you'll see in Google search results. So you can optimize that as well. And that's pretty much it. So that's what the Yoast SEO plugin looks like. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to look at the Updraft backup plugin settings. So here, again, we are in the plugin section. You can click on the settings, but if you're in the other areas of WordPress, you can go to Updraft Plus, which is up here. You can go to settings from there as well, too. Okay, so you can either choose to manually back up your website, okay, and you would just click Backup Now. Here it'll show you if you've run any previous backups, and if it's saved on the local server, it'll show up here as well. Let's go to Settings. So here you can configure a schedule, okay, for your backups. So you can run backups automatically. So you can run it every, so what I would do is you can run a file backup on a daily basis, and then you can configure how many backups to keep, in your storage, whether it's on your server or on an external storage site like this in the cloud database. We'll do that daily as well. Okay. So Updraft also comes with a premium version, and you can actually, with the premium version, you can schedule it when the backups should be run. So normally you want to run backups during a time of day when you have less visitors, okay? So that's actually an important part. So usually I would upgrade to the premium for that, being able to do that, because it could affect your site's speed, and you don't want it to crash when it's during your peak period when most of your visitors are visiting your website. Okay, but if you're just starting out, you can just start off maybe with the free plan and then upgrade a little bit later. Okay, so that's up to you. What I like to do is I don't like to save the backup files on the web server itself. You want to send it off to an external service, okay? Because remember we talked about single point of failure before. If your backup file is saved on the same web server as your web host, so if your web host is down, you can't even access your backup files, right? So you want to keep your backup files separate. So you can choose any one of these services. The one thing I like about Updraft is that it does have a lot more cloud backup options than, say, I was using Backup Buddy before, which is also a fine backup plugin, but it didn't have as many cloud backup options. And Backup Buddy, I had a lot of problems with it, just timing out during its backup processes. So I've since moved over to Updraft Plus here. So you can choose whichever cloud backup service you want to use. Okay, usually I'll use either probably Rackspace or Amazon or Google Cloud. So it's really up to you whether you've signed up for any of these other cloud services. Okay, and it's pretty easy to set up because it'll walk you through each cloud setup. So let's just say Amazon here. Okay, so it'll tell you how to get all the credentials to set up the cloud backup. So you just follow their instructions here. It's pretty clear, pretty easy. So in this case, I won't enter my details here. So here you can set what you want to include in your backup files. Again, I tend to stick with their default settings unless if there's any, for whatever reason, you don't want to include any of these things. In most cases, probably 99% of you will need to just include all of these in your backup. Okay. If you want to get a report for whenever a backup's done, you can also check this if you want. Okay, leave that. And then if you made any changes, don't forget to click Save Changes. Okay, so let's move to Advanced Tools. So here you can just leave all of this. Lock settings. Okay, so you have to upgrade to access this feature. What this is Updraft also offers their own cloud backup service, so you can upload your backup files to Updraft's cloud servers as well. If you're using another cloud service, you don't necessarily have to use this. Okay. Okay, again, this is a premium feature. Hopefully you don't need to use that. Okay. Yeah, so you don't really need to worry about too many of these advanced tools. Okay. So that's all you need to do to set up your backups. Okay, so it's always best to set up a schedule to do this. Okay, and we will talk about the maintenance a little bit later as well, and the backing up of your WordPress site will come into play there as well. But this is just the general walkthrough of the Updraft backup settings. Okay, in this module, we're going to start talking about all the elements that make up your WordPress site. So we're going to start off with the header area of your WordPress site. The header, pretty much the name itself kind of gives you a good idea of what it means, is this top area right here with all the white background up here. That is called your header area. So it'll include the title of your site, or in most cases, this is where our logo will go. And this is where your navigation menu is usually placed. So this very top part here is called your header. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the footer element of your WordPress site. So in the previous lesson, we talked about the header, which is at the very top here. And the footer is this bottom area here in black. This entire area is considered your footer area. So usually you'll have your copyright notices, etc. Probably some, maybe your company address, some other quick links to other areas of your website. And this is your footer area. Okay, in this lesson, we're talking about the navigation menu. So the navigation menu is the menu that you usually find at the very top of your website. Some cases may be found over here on the side, but in most cases we're talking about the main navigation menu, which is usually found at the top or the header area of your WordPress site. So that will include, say, a link to your blog, your homepage, your contact us page, any other links to other pages or major areas of your site is found in your navigation menu. In this lesson, we're going to show you what the sidebar is. So in the main content area here, this is what we call the main content area. Your layout for your WordPress site can be, you can choose various layouts. And in some cases, this layout includes what we call a sidebar. So the sidebar is this, what you're finding here on the side right here. In this particular layout, the sidebar is located on the right-hand side. We're going to talk about this a bit later, but when we customize our sidebars, but you can also have your sidebar on the left-hand side if you want. And in older days, some websites would have two sidebars, so one on the left, your main content body in the middle, and then a right sidebar as well. These days, it's probably kind of rarer to see the type of layout where you have two sidebars. That's probably an older style, design style and preference, but in some cases, depending on the theme you're using, you can probably still do that. But for our cases, we're probably just going to focus on having the sidebar on just having one sidebar and having it either on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. In this lesson, we're going to talk about widgets. So if we're logged into our WordPress site here, and if you go to Appearance, scroll down to Widgets. What are these widgets? So we talked about the sidebar before and the header. Okay, so you can see here on this left-hand side are available widgets that you can use. So what are these? So if in our main sidebar, let's just have a look at that. So this is our main sidebar. You can see here there's a search field here. Now if we go back into the widget area, this is a widget, the search widget. So if you wanted to, you could, if you didn't want to have the search bar displayed in your sidebar, you could press delete and it'll remove the search widget. Okay, so here you can also create a title here. So let's just do that. And then you save it. And let's just go back to our home page here. We'll refresh this. So you can see here now the title that we entered here above the search widget is displaying now. So let's remove the search widget. And then let's go back here and refresh the page. And you can see the search widget now is gone from your sidebar. Okay, so these little drag and drop. So let's say the calendar, we can drag this calendar here. And then we click Save. Go back to our home page and refresh it. And you can see here now we have this calendar widget that displays in the sidebar. So these little widgets offer different functionality, sort of drag and drop functionality that makes it easier for non-designers, non-coders to just add these different functionalities to your sidebar. Okay, it's very easy, just drag and drop like you just saw here. And what widgets that are available to you to use will vary depending on certain plugins you use and maybe certain specific themes that you're using. But what you see here are pretty much common widgets that are probably available in 90 to 99% of all other WordPress themes. Right? So widgets that are available to you will vary depending on the themes and plugins that you're using. So here you can see you can add various widgets to your header area and to your footer area. And we'll look at these a little bit later in more detail. Okay, in this lesson we're going to talk about pages versus posts. This is an important aspect that you'll need to understand what the difference is. It's a very subtle sort of difference. So we'll start with posts. Posts, this is the area where you will most likely be creating, if you're blogging or creating articles, creating various content that you're going to be sharing on your blog. This is where you're going to be, this is the type of that you'll be using. So this, you'll be creating a post for a blog post. Now previously we already looked at that. If we look at our website here, and if we click on blog, and this is where your posts will be listed. So this here is a post or blog post. And in a lot of cases, your blog post will have a different layout to your page. Not always the case, but it depends on the use of your particular page. But in a lot of cases, your post will have a sidebar on either the right-hand side or the left-hand side. Okay. When it comes to pages, these are, say, something like your About page. That will be in the format of a page. You can see here, our page layout is very different from our blog post here. This we have used a different layout for a page, and we'll talk about that a bit later too. How to customize the design and layout of a page. But generally pages are usually like your About page, Contact Us page, your home page, and you'll learn about landing pages, specific landing pages that will be created as a page as well. So that could be a sales landing page for a product or a service. You'll be creating a page for that type of content. So posts is usually reserved for your blog posts or articles, and then pages are usually for your anything about your company, your business, your products, and services. So that's the main difference between a post versus a page. Okay, in this lesson we're going to look at the theme that we're going to be working with going forward in this course. So right now this is the only theme we have installed right now. It's the default WordPress theme here, but we don't want to be using this one. So as we mentioned, if we're going to upload a new theme, you can either upload it from here, or in this case it's actually available in the marketplace here, so we can just search for it. So we're going to be using the Astra theme, which is a free theme. It's also got some premium or paid features, which we'll look at a bit later, but right now we're going to make do with the free version of this theme. Now the reason why I like to use the Astra theme is because it's very lightweight. So that means it helps your website load faster. Okay, so it's very clean, and it works very well with what we call page builder plugins, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So Astra is built specifically to work with page builders, which is what our page builders are, a very sort of drag and drop design plugins. So it helps you create web pages without having to do any coding. Okay, so that's what we're going to be using to build our site. So that's why Astra is a very good base theme to work off of. Okay, so let's install that. Okay, and we're going to activate it. Okay, so you can see here now the Astra theme that we just installed is the active theme that we're working with. So let's just have a quick look at that. Okay, so this is all it looks like. It's very basic, So we're going to be working with this as the base, as our foundation. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a very simple text-based logo. So here we're using canva.com, and you can sign up for a free account. And once you're logged in, you can click on the More. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new design using custom dimensions. And we're going to set it to 500 pixels by 250 pixels. Okay, so we want to keep it on pixels and then click on Design. Okay, so in this case, we're going to make a very, very simple, basic text logo. So we want to keep our background white. In Canva, the free version, you don't have the option for a transparent background. So that's a paid or upgraded function of Canva. And I'll show you what we can do if we want to have a transparent background. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the text element. And let's just, we'll click on this one, the body text, okay? So here you're going to, let's just say our fictional company is just called Your Company. Okay, and here you can play around with the different fonts. They've got a lot of different fonts here. You can choose whichever one fits with your particular business. Let's just say for our particular fictional business, let's take a look and see which one we might like to try. Let's see this since I like this one. Okay, so you can use this yourcompany.com. So for this size space, let's make the text bigger. Let's make it up to 28. Okay. Okay, looks like let's make it a little bit bigger too. 48. Okay, this looks just about right. And you can see here in Canva, they give you there's some guidelines as to whether it's centered on your canvas or not. Okay, let's just make this a little smaller. Now you can input your own size as well if you don't see anything that fits. Let's fit this into the canvas space. Okay, so you can see here, okay, now it's centered. And now it's centered on both the horizontal and vertical axis. So let's just make this a little bit more nicer. Now you can choose to either bold the name. It looks nicer without the bold in this case. So a lot of cases, companies with their logo, if they say it consists of 2 words, maybe the first word can be a different color. Let's try this blue here. See how it looks. Okay, so that looks okay. We can use that, or maybe with something a little bit darker. So if you want more colors other than this default palette, you can click on the plus sign and you can choose a whole bunch of different colors here. Let's choose this type of dark blue. Okay, that's what it looks like. Okay, so you can play around with this if you want. Let's say that second word, we don't want it to be pure black. Let's turn it into a sort of gray, or something like this. Okay, so if you're happy with this, now if you don't want all this other white space, okay, sorry, there's no crop here. Okay, so here we are done with our basic text logo. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to download it, and it's recommended to download as PNG, so that's what we're going to leave it at, and then you just click download, and then you can save it to your computer. Okay, so now in this case we have created something here with a white background. Okay, and in this case we have also a lot of white space here, so we want to crop that too. So you may want to resize it if it doesn't look like, it'll fit. If you're going to do a sort of horizontal type of logo, you can set those the custom dimensions accordingly. Otherwise, you can also consider doing something like this. You can make your logo vertical. Sorry. So you may want to do something like that. And in this case, if the spacing between the height between the letters or the words is too much, then you can bring it in closer like this. Okay, so it's up to you how you want to do it. So you may need to play around. So if you find that, okay, and in the resize function in Canva is a paid feature. So that's a little bit of a pain in the butt in terms of using Canva, unless if you know the dimensions that you want to use. So what you're going to do is you can create a new design with dimensions that are a bit more closer to your final logo. Or the other thing is we can use another program that is a paid program called Using. So if you want to upgrade to the other features like resizing, and I believe transparent backgrounds, it's $12.95 at this time of publishing per month. Or you could consider this other one that I use called Using. This one's only $9.99 per month. Okay, so here I'm in a new design in Using, and I'm using a custom size canvas. We want to change the resolution here from 72 dpi, or dots per inch, to 300. Okay, and we don't need to worry about the default size at the moment because we can always crop it later. So let's do the same thing that we did before in Canva. So it's called Your Company. Whoops. So we can change the text size here to say what it was. What did we have before? It was 46, I believe. Okay. So here you can play around with the different fonts again as well. Now, Using also has different type of fonts available, so it doesn't have the exact same fonts that you have in Canva. So you can see what might make sense for you here as well. Let's see here. Let's use Riven. Okay. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to change the color of the first word. Let's use this. So you can choose a different type of blue, whatever blue fits. Okay. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit more here so you can see it better. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, so we're going to crop out all the other white space around the logo. Okay, and then we just click the check mark. Whoops. So if we want to get rid of some more white space, we can, keep adjusting here. Okay, so that looks all right. So this is our logo. We can preview it. That's what it looks like. Okay. Okay, and then you can download it as a PNG type file. Oh, now in this case, we want to set the background. Okay, so we can click on the background tab here, check off transparent. And that's what we want in this case. We want a transparent background so that whatever background your website is, when you upload your logo, it will just show your text logo with a transparent background. So whatever color your website header is will show up behind your logo. And then you can download that and save it. Okay. And that's how you can create a very simple text-based logo on your own with either a free or a very low-cost method. Now for using, if all you're doing is creating just the one logo and you don't need to do other graphics, ongoing graphics, then you just sign up for 1 month and then cancel it for the next month. It's really up to you. Okay, so the next part, after we have downloaded our logo, we want to optimize that image. We're going to go to this site called Kraken.io. And then we're going to use the free web interface. In this case, we can leave the default options here. We're going to upload the file from our computer. We're going to leave this as lossy optimization. And then we're going to upload it here. And you can see here below here is where you uploaded the file, and it'll tell you how much savings in terms of the file size you have here and the percentage. And then if you click on this, we'll right click it and save as. I'm going to save this as the logo name and optimize, so I know that this is the optimized version. Okay, so that's how we optimize our image, our logo image. Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to upload your logo to your WordPress site. So here we're logged into our WordPress site, and if you go to Appearance and then Customize. Okay, so you can see here this is it's got a preview of what your current layout and site looks like. We're going to click on Site Identity. And here you can see, so here in the logo area, it has placed your text for what your site title is, but we don't want this to be showing, so we're going to uncheck this. Okay, so you can see it disappears. We want to upload our own logo that we just created. So we go here to Select Logo. Okay, so now we're going to upload our logo. Now we want to select the one that we optimized. Okay, so this is a compressed version of our logo, and this helps our website load faster. Okay, so there you go. And in the alt text, this is basically if your website loads and for whatever reason it can't load the image, the alt text or alternative text field will show this text in its place in case your image doesn't load up. And this is also good for SEO purposes. So in this case, we're going to name it our company. You can add like your company logo if you want, but we'll leave it as your company or your company name, and we'll select it. And we want to make sure that we're showing the entire logo here. Okay. Now, if your whole image, you want to have your whole image displayed, then you want to ensure that this covers your entire image. But because we have a lot of white space here still, we can just crop that here too. Okay, and you can see here now your logo is displaying up in the header area. Okay, and don't forget to click Publish so you can save the changes. And that's how you upload your logo. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to create the little site icon that shows up here on your tabs for your website. Okay, now we're going to just go back to our WordPress site under Appearance, Customize. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to Site Identity. So there's the same area where we uploaded our logo. And now we're going to upload our site icon. Now here it tells you also should be square and it should be at least 512 by 512 pixels. Here we're in Canva. We're going to create a 512 by 512 pixel this square canvas. We're going to click on the text element. And click on heading if you want. So in our case, we want to, since our fictional company name is your company, we're going to use the first two letters. And then let's look up the, okay, let's change the size. Have to be bigger. Probably have to be even bigger. And here it's centered into the image. Let's make this a little bit bigger too. Probably even more. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Let's change. So we had our Y as a blue color. Okay, so that's our site icon that shows up here. Now, if you have an image logo, you can put that in here as well if you want, as long as it's in the 512 by 512 pixel size. We're going to download this. Okay, now we can go back to our WordPress admin area. So now we're back in the site identity customizer, and now we're going to upload our site icon. And here's the file that we got. Now, I didn't do this just yet, but we're going to do the same thing with what we did with the logo. We want to go back to kraken.io and optimize your site identity icon as well. But in this case, I'm just going to upload the one that we just created. But I recommend that you also optimize your site identity image as well. Okay, and you can see here it's showing up now, up here in the tab, and then click Publish to save your changes. And that's how you upload your site identity icon. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to start customizing our header area. Now, in the previous lesson, we've uploaded our logo. Now we're back into the customizer. We're going to go to Layout, and then we're going to go to the primary header. So you can see we currently have this layout selected. So you have got the logo here with your menu, navigation menu, to the right hand side of your logo. Or you can choose to have the logo at the top and centered, and with your navigation menu just underneath. Or if you want it the other way, you can have your logo on the right hand side with your navigation menu to the left. I generally don't see this type of layout almost at all. So it's either one of these two, but the most common one is this one, where you have the logo at the left hand side with the navigation menu to the left, to the right. And here you can play around with the different settings. You can choose to have a border, a line that displays on the border here. So maybe you can, if you want it thicker, you can see here it changed the thickness there. Or maybe you don't want to have a border. You can choose not to. You can change the color of the border if you want. Let's say red. Okay, so you can see here the various different settings that you can do. And here you can also control how the header looks in the mobile, if somebody's viewing your website on a mobile. So here you can play around with these settings as well. And that's pretty much all you have to do with your header area. And then whatever changes you made, don't forget to click Publish. In this case, I don't want to save my changes. But that's how you customize your header. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to create your navigation menu. So now we're logged into our WordPress admin area. Scroll down to Appearance, and then down to Menus. So here you can see we don't have any existing menus. We're going to create our very first menu, and we want to name it. So let's just call this the main menu. So you need to create your menu first. Now here you can, here are some settings. Here you can choose to automatically any new page you create to your menu, but we don't want to do that. And then for this particular menu, we want to add it to our primary menu area. And here you can see you can choose what to include in your menu. In most cases, you're probably going to include the pages. So let's click on these pages. Click Add to Menu. Okay, so you can see it's showing up here. Now let's just say we don't like this order. Let's say we want the home page link to be the first link. And let's just say I don't want to call this home page. I want to call this home. Okay. And then let's see if there's anything else you want to add. So let's just say you have a link that maybe goes somewhere else, to like another website. You can add a custom link to your menu. So you can enter your URL here. So I'll just enter a placeholder. This can be, link. Okay, so now we have added all our links to our main menu. Let's save this menu. And remember, we have set this menu as our primary menu. So let's take a look and see. Okay, so you can see here our menu, navigation menu is showing up here, and these are the links that we included into our main menu. So that's how you create your own navigation menu. In this lesson, we're going to look at customizing our main layout for our website. So here we're back in the WordPress admin area. Under Appearance, click on Customize. Okay, and then we're going to click on Layout. And we're going to click on Container. So you can play around with the different settings here. Now here is the default setting. So this is what's called using the Astra theme. They've got these 4 different options for your main content layout. So you can play around to see which one you prefer. This is called Content Boxed. So that means the main content area is in a box here. And I'll show you how this affects how we're gonna design our website when we talk about page builders. So you can even try the different settings, and I'll show you what it looks like. Now, using box, you can see on the sidebar all the different widgets here are also boxed, and so you might prefer that. This setting, the full width contained. So here this stretches out, so it's not boxed. Your content is not boxed as we saw previously. But it's all contained according to the whole width of your screen. And then finally, full width is stretched. Okay, so you can see this is what it looks like. So I'll leave it to you as to which setting you prefer. You can play around with it. For our purposes, we are going to be using either full width stretched or full width contained. So you can play around whichever one you want, but in our purpose, we're going to be using this one, full width stretch. Now you can also, if you want to have something different for your blog posts and for your pages, you can set that here. Or if you want them all to follow your default layout, you can also set that, just leave it as default. So in our case, for our blog post, we are going to we're going to leave that here. So let's go back out here. Next thing we want to do is we want to go to the sidebar setting. So currently, if we have a sidebar setting, we've got it set to the right-hand side. Now you can choose to have the left-hand side, like this, or you can choose to have no sidebar at all for all of your pages. Now, for a default, let's leave this as no sidebar. Okay. For our pages, we want to leave it as no sidebar. For our blog post, though, we want to have a sidebar showing, so we can choose to either have left or right. In my case, I'm going to put it on the right-hand side. Same with the blog post archives. I want to put on the sidebar on the right-hand side. Okay, and let's click Publish to save these settings. So here we have defined our layouts for our web pages and blog posts. Okay, here we're going to customize how our blog posts will look like, and we'll customize the layout and what's included. So here I'm on a blog post, and I've clicked on the Customize button. Now we're going to go to Layout. Go to Blog, Single Post. So you can see here what's going to be included in a single blog post. Okay, here we haven't uploaded an image, so that's why there's no image showing. But if we have a featured image uploaded, then we want that to display at the top here. So the next thing is you can so these links here, in some cases, maybe you may or may not want to include it. So let's just say the date that we publish this post. Now maybe if you're not able to keep up with blogging regularly, you may not want to include the publish date. If your content's more evergreen, then you don't need to put the date up here. So let's just say we can turn off this is by the author. You can choose to remove that if you don't want the author to be showing. Same with the category or comments. So you can turn these on or off by just clicking on the I button here, what's going to be displayed and what's not displayed. And that's how you customize what's going to be displayed on your blog post. Okay. So if you like these changes, you can click on Publish. Okay, and you can see here with this particular setting, layout setting that we set previously in the container area, the text stretches all the way to the very edge of our screen. So I may not like that. So you may want to change this to a full width contained. And you can see what change it does here. So here it adds a little bit more padding between your text and the screen edges. So that might be a little bit more, that might be a better preference for you. Okay, so let's leave that for our blog post. Sorry, I changed that. We want to leave our default container stretched. But for our blog post, we want to set it to contained. Like this. And that looks better. And that's how we customize the layout of your blog post. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to customize the layout of our footer area. So again, we are in our customizer section. And if you click on layout and then footer, you can see what kind of options you have. You have footer widgets, footer bar. So the footer bar is currently what you see here. Okay. So let's just say, so by default, Astra includes this text here. So let's just say we don't want to include that. Okay. We can just go here and remove that. So this is where your copyright statements can go. You can choose to have it as it is here, like we have it here, or you can have it as a 2-column layout. But for our purposes, we're going to leave it as a default, because what we're going to do next is go to footer widgets. And by default, it is disabled, but we want to activate the footer widgets like this. Okay, and you can see here this new section just above the the footer bar now is showing up. And in the next lesson, I'll show you how we're going to customize this area and what kind of information we'll be putting in. So let's publish this. In this lesson, we're going to talk about designing your website and pages with page builders. So what's a page builder? A page builder is a WordPress plugin that you install onto your WordPress site. And it will allow you to design and build web pages without having any sort of design or programming skills. So it's basically a drag and drop type of page editor. There's a lot of different page builders on the market, and the specific page builder that we'll be using in this course is called Thrive Architect. So here's what the Thrive Architect page builder looks like. So you can see here we've got a blank page, and the Thrive Architect page builder menu is on the left hand side here. So you can start crafting your web pages with this page builder. I'll just do a very quick example here before we delve into the page builder. So here we can drop a heading. You can see that. We'll drop a paragraph underneath it. You can put an image below it here. So you can see here you can easily drag and drop different elements onto your web page and quickly start designing a web page on your own. Okay, in this lesson I'm going to talk about why we chose the Thrive Architect page builder over all the other page builders that are out in the market. So in this course we're going to be using the Thrive Architect page builder, and the reason why this is the preferred page builder that I use for projects in our own sites is one, Thrive Architect is pretty easy to use. It has a lot of functions and elements that are very useful and makes it very easy to use. One of the things I like very much is, I'm just going to show you here. Okay, so we've just dragged a content box here, and then we're going to move this heading and our paragraph all inside and the image. So you can see here it's just easy. You can move all the elements that you've moved onto the page very easily, drag and drop them anywhere. Now the other thing, what I want to show you here is, say let's select this paragraph element, and what you can see here is there's a breadcrumb telling you that this text or paragraph element is also contained within this content box, but you can't see it here, can you? If you select this, but sometimes, so what you can do is if you actually move your mouse over it, you should be able to select that content box, but sometimes when you do this it's hard to select it, so you can't even, it's very difficult to select it properly. So when you actually select the element within it, say this heading, all you need to do is select on the breadcrumb and it'll select the whole content box that contains all of these other elements for you, and that makes editing things much easier. I've used some other very popular page builders out there, and currently they don't have this function, and this makes a very big difference in terms of your workflow. The other reason why I prefer Thrive page builder is also, if one day you decide that you're not going to use Thrive Architect, you're going to move to a different builder, or you decide not to renew your license for Thrive membership, and you remove your plugin, the Thrive Architect plugin, what will happen is the way Thrive handles your content, if you've used Thrive Architect to build a page, is they will turn most text content into a WordPress element so that your content will still be retained and saved. Now your whole design for your web page is most likely going to be broken, and that's pretty much common for any page builder you use, not just Thrive Architect, but a lot of other page builders out there, if you don't use their plugin, if you disable it or you change to another plugin, what will happen is it'll leave a lot of short codes behind, which are going to be useless if you switch to a new page builder or you don't use a page builder at all. So that means there's a lot of manual cleanup on your side. That's going to be very time consuming. And that's why Thrive actually tries to handle this a lot more better and save you a lot more work if you decide not to use it. So that it leaves a lot of your text content and images behind. And in some cases, other page builders, if you stop using them, because of the way they're designed, if say like this text element and you're using a different page builder, if you stop using it, all this text could also be removed as well. That's how some page builders handle it, which is not a very good way. And if you find out the hard way, if you stopped using it and you find that all of your content is gone because you stopped using a particular page builder, that can be quite a nightmare. So that's one of the reasons why I like using Thrive Architect, is because they have thought about how to treat your content if you disable or stop using their page builder plugin. Okay, so there's a bit less headache for you. Doesn't mean it's still going to be quite a headache to clean up, but just not as much of a headache with other page builders. And then finally, the other reason is Thrive Themes actually has a membership package. They not only include a page builder, but they have a whole bunch of themes that you can use. There's the Thrive Architect page builder plugin. There's Thrive Comments plugin. There's Thrive Leads, which is something we will be using as well, which we use a lot of on our websites. And that's for marketing purposes. There's the Thrive Quiz Builder plugin, which we also use extensively. There's the Thrive Ultimatum, where you can create countdown promotions on your pages. And really a whole bunch of other plugins. So they're constantly adding new plugins as well as part of your membership. And you get access to all these plugins just in one single annual membership fee, which is, you get a lot more value for the membership fee, whereas a lot of other plugins, you're just getting the page builder, and then you got to pay extra for other additional plugins, which end up, when you total it all up, it actually costs a lot more than just the Thrive membership. So a lot of people will find that Thrive membership for all their products offers a lot more value, and that's something that I've found as well. So that's why for us, we usually recommend getting on a Thrive membership package is what we use. We use the development package. So that's why we have chosen to work with Thrive Architect for our courses and building our sites. So just an additional note about Thrive themes. So we mentioned that we recommend Thrive theme membership so we can access all their plugins. Now, Thrive theme membership also includes access to a bunch of their theme templates or themes, WordPress themes. Now, you probably remember we actually installed the Astra WordPress theme. So why are we using Astra theme when we're recommending you purchase a Thrive membership package when there are WordPress themes included in this? The reason is I've built sites using the Thrive themes templates. So far we have found they are not quite as well optimized for speed, and whereas Astra is extremely lightweight and works very, very well with page builders. In fact, Astra is specifically built to work with page builders. So that's also why I don't really recommend using the Thrive themes that comes with this membership. There is only one theme that we tend to use, is the focus blog theme, which is the only one we would use so far. All the other themes require a lot more design and coding knowledge to modify, unless if you're using the page builder. So that's why we tend to use the Astra theme for most of our work, and using it with the Thrive Architect page builder. In this lesson, we're going to look at customizing our footer widgets. So previously, if we scroll down here, we set our footer widgets on, and this bottom part section is our footer bar. So we want to start customizing this part. So if we go into our WordPress admin section and we go to the widgets section, okay, you will notice that this is the footer widget area that we want to work with right now. So you just click on these arrows to expand it. You can see that there's nothing there at the moment. So if you want to follow, we're going to recreate a footer similar to this. So let's just copy this part actually. So if we want to add the address for your company here in the very first widget on the left hand side, that's in this footer widget area 1. That is what we're going to be using is a text widget. So this can be any sort of text. Okay, so we can just paste that in there. So you can add a title if you want to have a section. So let's say contact us, and then click save. Okay, and in this example we also have our social media properties here as well. So if we want to add that, we can, let's just look up social. We can either use the Jetpack social media widget. Okay, that's the only one we have available here. Let's use that. We'll drag that up here. And we'll put that just below our address and contact details widget. So here you can change the title of it. You can either call it social or follow us. Facebook, let's say. So you enter your various your Facebook page URL, your Twitter username. If you've got an Instagram, you can put that there, etc. Like YouTube. I'm just putting placeholders here. And then we're going to save this. Okay, so that's our footer widget area 1. That's in this first column here. We've done that. So in this second column of our footer, you can choose to put quick links to a bunch of pages. Now here we've got the full main menu here, which is probably not what you want. What we want to do is we're going to go back and create a new menu. Okay, we're going to create a brand new menu, and we'll call it footer menu 2. So this way we know that this is for our footer widget number 2. So let's just put a couple of pages, whether it's this is just for demonstration purposes. So we'll save that. Okay, and then we'll go back to our widget section here. Let's expand all of these again. So then what we want to do is we want to select the navigation menu widget. Scroll, and we want to put that here. So you can add a title here if you want. Say something like quick links, and then we will select the footer menu that we just created. Okay, so let's take a look at so in this third column we have a list of recent posts. Let's have a look there. Okay, so here's a widget for recent blog posts. We'll drag that up here and we can call it recent posts. You can choose whether you want to display the date of the post or not. I want to leave that blank. Save it. And here we can create another menu if you want. So it depends. You can choose, something. Let's see here. We can also I know you can put like a calendar here if that makes sense for you. Okay. This is just an example. So okay, we've saved this. Let's have a look at what our footer looks like now. Okay, so you can see here now we have now created a customized footer widget area here. Okay, in this lesson we are going to design our home page using the Thrive Architect plugin. Okay, so here we are back in our WordPress admin site. Now if you haven't already, create a new page. We can just call it home page for now. And once you've created it, you will see now there's an option to edit that page with Thrive Architect, assuming that you've already installed Thrive Architect as well. So we can click here on Edit with Thrive Architect. Okay, one thing I forgot to do here in the edit, let's edit this first. And what we want to do is scroll down here and over on this side for the Astra settings, check disable title. Okay, we don't want to have this title displaying because we want to create our own headline for the page, and then click on update or save it. Okay, now that that's ready, now while we're in here, we can also click on Edit Thrive with Thrive Architect. Okay, so you can see here we have a completely blank page here. We have our logo, our navigation menu in the header, and our footer that we have already customized. And for this example, we are going to create a home page that is modeled off of, let's say, Tony Robbins. You know, because he's such a famous personal development personality. Let's create something along these lines. Now, obviously, you don't want to be copying exactly what they have on their site. You want to model it off of or get inspiration from his particular site. So we want to create a layout and design that is similar to what he's got here. Okay. So you can see in here the very first item here below the header is he's got a background video playing and a large massive headline here and a button here that takes you to a quiz. Okay, so let's recreate this sort of section. What we're going to do though is we're not going to put a video background because for our purpose I generally don't recommend doing video backgrounds because it can be very resource heavy and slow down your website, but we're going to use an image background for our purposes. So let's go back to our page. So in order to start creating this, we are going to use the background section in Thrive Architect. So you find that element and then drag it over to your page. Okay, so here you can see the background section is highlighted. We want to have it stretched to fit the screen, and we want to check this box, content covers entire screen width. So whether they're viewing on a mobile phone, a tablet, a website, or on a desktop, on a laptop, or if they have a computer with a large monitor, then this section is going to be stretched no matter what size screen they're using. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, we'll close this part of the settings. We want to go down to the background style. And we want to add a layer to the background. We want to add an image layer. So we can click this, and then we can upload an image. And we've already got an image here that we can use. So, in this example, we're kind of doing like a expert or consultant type of, or celebrity type of website. So this is like a hero shot. For this particular image, we have set it at 1920 by 1280 pixels in size. That will be the most ideal size for you. Okay, and the attachment, we want to make sure it is set at the full size. And this particular image we have also optimized with Kraken, and now we want to insert it. Okay, so you can see it's showing up in the background here. So you can actually play around with the settings. You can create a static background so that when you're scrolling within this section, this picture stays static. But for us, we're not going to do that here. You can click on these points to have where the image should be positioned. In this case, we want to have it right in the center here, and you'll see why. The next thing we're going to do is, and one of the things I like about Thrive Architect is it has a lot of actual sort of graphical effects features. This is the kind of thing that you might have to do separately in a Photoshop type of program, but we can do it here with our page builder. So next thing we want to do is we want to add a color layer. So you can see here, it's added a black color layer on top of our image. And here we can select the opacity, drag it down so that the black layer starts to be a bit transparent, and you can start to see the background image behind of this. And I'll show you why we're doing this. Okay, so we've created our background section here. So the next thing we want to do, we want to add a heading. We want to move it inside the background element. And here you want to center this. And then we want our text to be a white color. Oops. So white is okay, so you're heading here. So let's say we want to change the font for this too. We could change that here. Here we will select a Google Fonts from the Google Fonts database. I usually like to use this one. So you can play around with whichever type of font you like to use. Okay, so here's our heading, which is similar to this. We can make this all uppercase if you want as well, but you can click on this. See, it'll automatically turn your text to all uppercase as well. Maybe we want it bold. You can also increase the size of it. Let's make it bigger. Okay. What else is he? Okay, he's got some text, some subtext underneath the big major headline. Another tool you can use if we're just going to put some place header text is you can go to this site here called loremipsum.io, and it can create some place header text for you. You can set, how the length of your place header text. We'll copy that. Drag so we want to move this text element just below our heading. And we want to paste that. So you can see we can't see it here, so we need to select all the text. We'll change the color to white. Oops. Let's add this white to our palette. Click apply. We also want to center this text again. And we probably want to increase the size of this too. It's like a bit of a... Now in this case, the text is stretched out all the way to the both edges of the screen. So we want to have some padding. in between. So what I want to do here is I'm going to add a content box here. I'm going to move this above the heading, but stay within the background element. I'm going to set this to 1200 pixels width. And then in the layout and position, I want to center this content box. So you can see it automatically centers it here. And we're going to start moving this heading inside it, inside the content box, and the text underneath the heading, but inside the content box. So now you can see here there's a lot more space in between from the edges. So let's see here. The next thing, they have a button here. Let's add a button. So you can see here there's a button element. If you can't find an element, you can also start searching here and it'll filter it out. Now the button, we can set different sizes like large, medium. Let's go with a large button, and let's just change the background color. We'll change it to blue. So here we can change the text, like take quiz. Oops. And if you highlight the button, over here you can create a link to where this button will take you. We'll just leave it as a placeholder link here for now. Now remember when I created this in the background, we added this black layer on top, this transparent black layer on top of the image. And the reason we did that is so that the text that is overlaid on top of this background image can stand out more, so you can read it a lot easier. So if we didn't do that, here's what will happen. Let's move this behind here. So this is without the black transparent layer on top of the image. So here, because of when the image is at its normal resolution, it's very hard to see the text here, right? Because of the white from the gentleman's shirt. It's not as easy to read. So that's why we add a transparent layer to darken it. So we still have an image, but it makes the text pop out more and much more readable. And we want our text to be readable. Let's just save this here. So you want to continue regularly save your work in case something happens. So let's see, what's the next section here? So he's got another section here that asks, like, as a call for action. So let's add another section here. We're going to add another background section. So we want to add it below the previous background section. Okay, and let's make this background. So here it looks like they have it's a very light gray color. Let's add that. I think this is a sort of light gray. You can make it any other color you want. Okay, and they've got some text here. We're going to add another content box just inside this background section. Again, let's set this to 1200. Maybe we'll make it smaller actually even. And then we want to center the content box. And they've got some text here, sign up, okay. We'll add a paragraph to this. Oh, sorry. It's okay, so we have a text here and a button here. In order for us to create the same type of layout, we're going to add a column element to the content box. So here it gives you, Thrive gives you a couple of, not a couple, but a few options for how you want to lay out the column. So let's, in this case, we're going to do 2/3 by 1/3. We are going to add a text element to this side. So here it says, like, sign up for our report, and we can center this. We'll probably increase the size on this too, something like this. So you can see here the text is slightly aligned at the top. Maybe we want it in the middle. Sorry. We select the column. We want to select columns, and here we can align it. Okay. Next thing we want to do is add a button to this side. We can make it bigger. Okay. Let's change the color. So what does it say here? Schedule a call. So let's schedule a call. Okay. We'll click Save to save our work. So what's the next thing here? So we've got two image boxes here that tells you how they can help you. So let's try this, and this is stretched to the both edges. So in this case, we can add a column box underneath this background. Okay, we want to set it at equal lengths, or equal widths rather. And we're going to set a couple of ways we can do this. We can set the background of the column to an image. So let's upload some files. Okay, let's select, got some images already uploaded here. Okay, so this is set as the background. So we want to do the same thing as we did previously. We need to add another layer, a solid color layer. We could do a red one. Click Apply. And let's also, next thing we want to do is we'll add a content box inside this column for the text. Okay. So we don't want the text to go from edge to edge of the column here. So we want to reduce the width. And then we can align it, center it. Okay, there's something wrong with this content box. Let's just do this again. Add the content box inside. Okay, and we're going to add the text now inside the box. Okay, and now we can select this content box and let's just reduce the width here and center this. Okay. Now we'll change the color, make it to white. Now, here's how we can help you. Okay, so we'll make this, let's just make this another heading. Okay. We'll add some text as well underneath it. No, we want this underneath this heading, but inside the content box. And let's copy this placeholder text in. We want to center it too. Okay. Okay, so let's say we want to make this the content a little bit narrower, right? We can do this. Okay, and here we need to center the heading. So you can see here, so it doesn't run from edge to edge. Next thing is, okay, they've got a button here. Let's add a button underneath this text. So we can change the color again to our blue, and we can write something like click here. Okay. And we'll just do the same thing again for this other column. Let's add a different background image. We'll use this one. Okay, and we want to add a solid color layer. So we use something like this last time. It's got a bit of a reddish tinge to it. And what we can do here is we can click on this, and here you can duplicate this so we don't have to recreate it from scratch. And then drag it over. And what I forgot to do was, actually what we can do is, let's delete this. And then we want to, let's select the content box. So you can see how the breadcrumb feature with Thrive Architect is very useful here. So you don't spend all your time trying to fiddle around, trying to just select the right element. We're going to duplicate this whole content. And we can drag it over here. Okay, so you can see here we've created this second column here. Now, over here it looks like both images, there's no space in between, right? So let's work on that too. The columns, that's the gutter width, I believe. Let's set that to 0. So you can see here it's stuck. Now there's no more space in between. Let's save this. Okay, let's look at the next element. So here we've got a large section with a picture of Tony and a little bit blurb about him as well. Okay, so here we're going to add another background section. And this is all white background, so we can leave it as it is. But what we want to do now is add another content box inside this particular section. Okay. And we're going to set this and align it to center. Now here we've got an image on this side and some text on this side. So what we need to do is add another column section. And oops, we're going to set it at half and half. Actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to let's redo this. We're going to set it to 1/3 by 2/3. Okay. And we will add an image to this side. Let's use this guy's image here. We don't need the full size. Now here, what we can do is let's center this first. If you go to image options, now you notice Tony's image here is in the circle here. We can create the same thing here without doing any sort of design coding. We're going to do this. So you can see here how that works. You can fiddle around with these settings. Okay, and then we have some text over here. You know, we can make this a heading. Call this a heading 3. You know, about you. And then add another paragraph. Can use this placeholder text again. So let's say in this content box, we want to make it a little bit narrower. Okay. Let's just save this. We're going to skip this part. We won't make something like this. Okay, let's include some latest blog posts. Let's add a heading. And we're going to keep this within the same content box and background section. Okay, so here, latest blog post. And for that, we can just search for the post grid element. Okay, and here it'll automatically show your latest blog post, and you can have different settings here. You can have the layout. You can do it horizontal or vertical if you want. Have it display in we only have one blog post here, but if we have 3 columns, it'll show 3 blog posts here underneath each other, or you can show as 2, whatever you want. This is what's included in the grid. So let's say you want to we only want to show 3 posts. You can set how it's sorted. You can include whether it's pages or in this case we want blog posts, so that's okay. You can also filter it. So say if you have different categories of blog posts and you want to display a specific section or category of blog posts, you can filter that here as well. So this is a pretty cool feature as well. Okay. So, that's all we're going to set up for the moment. The rest of this we're not going to set up. It's pretty straightforward. So here we've already created our home page, and we've modeled it after say Tony Robbins's page. Now remember, don't copy exactly. We just want to get inspiration from it. So let's preview this. So here you can see you can play around with the settings. So maybe the background is a little bit too dark. We might make it a bit more transparent so that a bit more of the image shows up. So here we've created, oh, this part here we need to change. We want this background section. We want to move these columns outside of this background section. Okay. Okay, so here we actually needed to create another background section here so that it sticks. We'll move these columns into its own background section. Okay, and so if we want this to stick, have no gap between this background section, we want to click on 0 here. That's padding. Okay, let's save this. Let's preview this again. Okay, so you can see here we've moved this out from this background section. We need to play around with the margins here so that we can get it to stick up. And here's the About You section and the latest blog posts. So here you've created your own homepage layout, based on another design that maybe is something that you like. Okay, you've done it all without any coding or design skills. So I hope you found this part useful. You can also do this with like sales pages, as part of your funnel, etc. That's why we like to use the Page Architect, or Thrive Architect Page Builder. Okay, in this lesson, I'm going to talk about Google Analytics and installing that on your website. So if you go to google.com/analytics, you can go here and then scroll down and then sign up for a free account. While you're at it, you can probably sign up for all the other services here like Google Tag Manager, Optimize, and Data Studio, because we'll be talking about those a bit later too. So you can just go ahead and sign up. So once you're signed up and you're logged into your Google Analytics account, go to the admin section if you're not taken there right away. And here under the property section, well, here I have other sites already created, but if this is a brand new account, then you can go down here and create a new property, and this will be for your website. You can name it what you want. And once you've set up your new property, you go down to the tracking info section here and then click on tracking code. And if you scroll down here, highlight this website tracking code here and then copy that. So now we're back in our WordPress site. Now, if you're using the Astra theme, as we've recommended in this course, we need to add another plugin. Now, if you're using a different theme, then this does not apply to you. So in this case, we're going to add a new plugin. We're going to look up Astra hooks. Okay, so we want this one by Brainstorm Force. They are the people behind the actual Astra theme. So we want to install that. Okay, once it's installed, you want to activate it. Okay, so now the Astra Hooks plugin is activated. So in order to go to that, we want to go to the Appearance and then Customize section. Okay, so you'll notice here in this menu that there's a new element that's been added called Hooks. So you want to click on that. And then we want to click on the header section. And then with the code that we have copied, the tracking code we've copied here from the Google Analytics, we can just paste that into the WP_head section. Okay. And then click Publish to save your changes. And that's how you manually install Google Analytics into your website. In this lesson, we're going to talk about Google Tag Manager and installing your Google Analytics via the Tag Manager feature from Google. Again, you can sign up for free if you haven't already. Okay, so here we're in the Google Tag Manager once you've created an account. Now, I've already got some other web properties already in here. But if it's a brand new account, if you go over to the three-dotted menu, drop-down menu, you want to go to Create Container. And then so here, as an example, you can name this as your website. So my test site. And this container will be for a website. So we'll click on Web. And then click Create. Okay. So here we have this code here, and it tells you that you want to paste this code as high as you can within the header section of your website. So we're going to select all of this, copy it. Now if we go back to our WordPress site into the hooks, we installed the Astra hooks, but going back into header. Now, if you're installing analytics via the Google Tag Manager, then you don't need to install your Google Analytics here within your website. You want to replace this code that we installed previously. We'll delete that, and we're going to install the Google Tag Manager code in the header here, so you can see that here. Now for a Google Tag Manager, there is another piece of code we need to install. Now this code, we'll copy that. It says here we have to paste this code immediately after the opening body tag. And that will go into this area here. So we're back in the Astra hooks in the header section, but we're going to install this part right after the after header section. Okay, and then we're going to click Publish to save our changes. Okay, so here we're going to go back to Tag Manager, click OK. And the next thing you want to do within Tag Manager is we want to add a new tag. We'll call this our Google Analytics tag. Okay, so the first thing we need to do under this part is select Tag Configuration. So here, because all of Google's services are tied together, then you can select the appropriate analytics. So in most cases, you're going to be selecting the universal analytics type. Okay. We'll leave this as page views. This we won't set just yet. Okay, so here we can always leave this as default for now. So the next thing we want to do is select the trigger. And in this case, we want this on all our pages. Okay. So this is just our general Google Analytics tracking. So this is just going to track all the activity that's going to happen on our website. And then click Save. Okay, so for here, we need to... Okay, for the tracking ID, you need to go back to your analytics account, and this is your tracking ID. So you just want to copy that and then paste that in here, and then you can click Save. In this case, we're not saving this as it's not the correct one. I'll discard that. So once you've set that, then it should be fine. And then that, so we've already installed all the tag manager scripts here. And if you haven't, save it by publishing it so you can save the changes. And that's how you install the Google Analytics via the tag manager. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to look at how to verify if we've installed the Google Analytics code, tracking code correctly. Now this method requires that you use the Chrome web browser, and then what you want to do is you want to go to extensions. Okay, I've already got it installed here, and what you want to look for is, let's see here, Tag Assistant by Google. So if you, all you need to do is just go to the Get More Extensions in Chrome and just search for tag, what is that called again? Tag Assistant. Okay, so you can see this here. It'll pull up all these results, and then you can if you find this one here by Google, that's the correct one. And then because I've already got it installed, I don't have the Add to Chrome button available, but it would have this type of button. Just click on Add to Chrome to install it, and then it'll install here. So once you've installed the Tag Assistant in Chrome, just go and visit your website, your main website here, and the Tag Assistant will be right here. Okay, so if you've installed your analytics correctly, this icon will be green. Now you can click on it here, and this will tell you, okay, it can read, it has detected the Google Analytics code. Okay, and this icon should be green. If it has blue or red, then something has gone wrong. If it's red, then it doesn't detect any proper Google Analytics code. Okay, so this is a good way of finding out whether you've installed it correctly. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to talk about the need for speed for your WordPress website. So why does your website have to load fast? Well, the first reason is that Google now uses your page load speed as a factor in terms of ranking your website in search engines. If you look at this article here, it's already said that Google is going to be using page speed as a ranking signal for mobile search, and that inevitably will also be in effect for just normal desktop search as well. Also, in terms of usability factor, your visitors aren't going to be waiting for more than, anything that loads, that takes more than 5 to 6 seconds to load. People are not going to wait around for your website to load. So that's why the speed is a crucial element for when you're building a site. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to look at a couple of free tools you can use to measure and monitor the speed of your site. So the first one is you can go to gtmetrics.com and you just enter your website here and then click on Analyze. And what it'll do is, let's just enter our website here. Okay, so once GTmetrix is done with its analysis, it'll give you a bunch of scores down here. It'll also tell you how long it took for it to load your website, how large your website size is, and how many requests, because this will affect your speed. And it'll give you a grading based on, this is using page speed score, which is using the Google's algorithm. And then there's also the Y-slow score, which is uses slightly different criteria. Generally, your Y-slow score will probably always be slightly lower than your page speed score. And then below, it'll give you a whole bunch of recommendations as to how to improve your score. The other free tool you can use is you can go to tools.pingdom.com. And same thing, you just enter your website here in this field and then just start your test. And again, it's the same type of thing. It'll give you a bunch of analysis and recommendations on how to improve your website speed. So now we're going to look at WordPress maintenance and caring for your brand new WordPress website. Now this is where many WordPress site owners will experience problems, because many of us are pretty lazy, and I know we don't do this until something really bad happens. And that first item is, when it comes to WordPress or really any sort of website maintenance and care, is always back up your website. Okay, so with WordPress, it can be very easy to do on your own. And again, it can be done using plugins. There's a manual way of doing it, but that's a really tedious way and really unnecessary. So we're not going to do that. We're going to use a plugin. So in this case, I have installed already the Updraft Plus backup plugin. Okay, so just follow the normal how you look for and install a new plugin. Just look up Updraft. It's one of the more popular backup plugins. Now, of course, this isn't the only WordPress backup plugin there is around. There's tons out there. This is the one that I just ended up liking more. I have another backup plugin I've used in the past is Backup Buddy. So I know a lot of people use that as well. That one's not too bad, but I found that I had some problems with it with some bigger sites where it just it times out a lot and kind of creates a lot of resources, sucks up a lot of resources when it does that. So I've since switched over to using Updraft Plus. Okay, but both are pretty good. There are others out there, so you don't have to necessarily use this, but this is the one that I prefer based on my own experience so far. Okay, so once you've installed Updraft, you can go to Settings. Now you can find Updraft either here. Once you've installed it, you can find it under here in Settings in Updraft Plus Backups, or you can find it up here in this menu here as well. So the first thing we'll want to do is go to Settings. Now I've installed the free version here. Obviously, there is a paid premium version, which I do recommend upgrading to. Reason being is because with the free one, you don't have as much control over the scheduling of backups. So, like I mentioned, when you back up a WordPress site, it will take up resources, right? And you don't want it to be running the backup during a time of day when your website is busy, when you have lots of visitors, right? So you want to only be running backup processes during probably the quietest time that you have the lowest amount of visitors. With the free version of Updraft Plus, you can't schedule that, or you can't have more control over that schedule. It will back up when it tells you it'll want to back up. So that may not be ideal for you. If you're just starting out, then fine, you don't need to upgrade just yet. But as you start to get visitors, and I do recommend that you upgrade to the premium version of Updraft, so you can have more control over the schedule of when scheduled backups occur. At this point right now, we're just running a manual backup, okay? So here we're in the settings. You can set a schedule for automated backups, which I highly recommend you do. At this moment, we're just going to I'll just show you a manual backup. So here it says how many of these backups do you want to retain or save. So how many versions of the backups do you want to save? Usually the default here of 2 is more than enough. Okay, unless if you're making a ton of changes to your websites, then you really don't need that many multiple copies of your backups. Okay. So again, here you can set the schedule of how often you need to do that. So in this case, for files, you could probably do this weekly or daily or a weekly basis. Okay, database backup, I will usually do this on a daily basis. Okay, because you will probably have more changes to your database, which is when you make changes to your content in WordPress. That's where it's usually saved, or the changes are. It's in your database. Okay, files are usually like you're updating your plugins, core files of WordPress. That doesn't happen quite as often, so that's why you can do this on a weekly and a monthly basis. Whereas on the database, you want to set this on a daily schedule. Okay. So here I'm just going to leave these as manual, just for the time being. You can choose to save your backup files, to various places. You can save it on your computer, which I don't recommend. I do like to send this off to probably something like Amazon S3 storage in the cloud, or if you prefer, you can use Microsoft Azure or Rackspace or Google Drive or the Google Cloud or any of these other cloud backup services. Usually I don't use Dropbox or like Google Drive because it can take up space that you may not have. So I like to use like either Rackspace, Amazon S3, or Google Cloud, because the cost to save it to these cloud platforms is really very minimal, and it's also in line with our theme of business continuity, or single point of failure. We don't want to be saving your backups on your computer or somewhere where or maybe your web server. All right, okay. You want to save it somewhere else. Okay. So you can choose wherever you want to save that. I will just for this example, we'll just save it locally, just for convenience sake. But for us, we would normally set up a cloud backup storage. So what kind of files do we want to include? Usually the default here, we want to include everything. We want to back up all our plugins, our themes, and whatever uploads, like images that we're uploading to our site. So here, if for whatever reason, if you have anything that you want to exclude or you don't want to include in your backup files, you can mention them here. So everything else here you can pretty much leave as the default settings. If you want, if you're experiencing errors in when you're running backups, then you can check this off so you can have a report sent to you after every backup is done. Or if you want to be notified if backups are actually running on schedule, then you can check this and enter your email. So once you've done all of that, you can save the changes. So I didn't make any changes here, so that's okay. So let's look at if we want to do a backup right now. Okay, so we've done all our settings. All you got to do now is just click on Backup Now. So we want to include, yes, all the files and all the database for this particular backup. We're backing up everything here. You click on Backup Now. Okay, so you can see it's giving you a status of what's happening right now. So you want to stay here just to keep an eye on what's happening. Now, if you've scheduled an automated backup, you don't need to be logged into your website to monitor what's going on. It will happen automatically. Okay, so just to let you know, in case you don't know, if you have set up a scheduled backup, you do not need to be logged into your WordPress site for it to run. Okay, some people don't know that. Okay, so I just wanted to be clear about that. So we're just waiting here as the backup process is working. It can take a while. Now, just as the backup is running right now in the background, just to also clarify, even if you're running a manual backup, you don't need to stay logged in. You can just let it run on its own. I just wanted to clarify that. So right now the backup is still currently running, so we're just still waiting for the update on that status. Okay, here we're just going to run the backup manually right now. So we click on Backup Now. So we want to include all the files. We want to perform a full backup here. And we click on Backup Now. Okay, so here you can see the backup is starting. Okay, so the backup is already completed here, so you can see that here. You can take a look at the logs if you want. If you want to access that backup, we can go back to here to existing backups. So you can see this is the one that we just ran. Okay, so what we want to do here is you want to click on each one of these. So database, and then you want to download it to computer. Okay, now this is when it's done manually. If you've set up a remote storage location, then it will Updraft Plus will send these backup files to the location that you've specified. Okay, so let's just say we've downloaded all of these backup files. For this particular one, I can just get rid of this old backup here. I'll delete this from our server because these ones are saved on our web server, so we want to get rid of that there. We don't really want to save them on the same web server as our website. Okay, so as I mentioned, we want to be saving these backup files off-site. Okay, even if you save it on your server, like your own file server or your computer, have those files backed up to somewhere in the cloud as well. So don't keep them all here locally on your computer. Okay, and that's how we back up a WordPress site. Okay, so the next item or task that you need to do when it comes to WordPress maintenance and care for your brand new site is you will need to log into your WordPress site at a minimum at least once per week. Now, why is that? Is because when it comes to your themes and plugins that you're using, and even the core WordPress files, there are constant updates that are needed to be done. Okay, and this is a major issue that people do not do. So a lot of newbie WordPress site owners, if you're not regularly updating your WordPress site, this is when your WordPress site can easily be vulnerable to hackers malicious code, having your website taken down. You'll see like your hosting will suspend your account. It can be a real big nightmare. So that's why it's an extremely important thing to remember to keep your WordPress site and all your themes and plugins that come with it updated. Okay, so like I said, at a minimum, log into your WordPress site at least once per week. And when you do, whenever you see this item up here, that tells you how many updates there are that are needed. When you look at the dashboard in this section, it'll also tell you the same thing. So let's just go up to the updates section here. Okay, so here we can see we have an update to our theme, to our Astra theme. Okay, so at the moment, all our plugins look like they're all up to date, so that's fine. Now, one thing to note, now if you have both plugins and themes that require updates, and even up here, you'll usually be told whether there's core WordPress files that need to be updated. You can't do them all at one time. Okay, so you need to update, if you want to update your WordPress core files, then you need to do that first, or you need to do that separately. And then maybe you can you can update your plugins, and then you can update the themes. Okay, so you can really update any of those three type of categories, only one category at a time. Now, before you make any updates, go back to our last lesson and back up your entire site first. Okay, this is one thing that a lot of newbies make this mistake, is that you don't back up your site first before making any updates. When updating a WordPress site, whether it's your core files, plugins, or themes, a lot of different things can go wrong. Maybe the plugin doesn't, that particular version of the plugin, the new version of the plugin, doesn't work properly with maybe other plugins, or maybe it's other plugins are not updated to work with that. It can break your site. Now, if that's the case, then if you haven't backed up your site, you're kind of screwed there, right? So you always, before making any updates, back up your site first. Okay, so go back to that previous lesson, learn how to back up your site. It's very easy. Back it up first, and then run your updates. Okay, so I'm assuming right now you've already run a backup of your site. So to make updates is very easy. You just select all, or select the item that you want to update. I usually will select all here, and then just click on Update Themes. Okay, and it'll update. So you're just waiting here. Just make a note, when you make updates to your site, again, you also probably want to do this during a period of time when your site is experiencing low traffic. Okay, because the reason why is, you can see here during the status update. So when a WordPress site is being updated, visitors to your WordPress site, WordPress itself will automatically set your WordPress site in what we call maintenance mode. Okay, so that means no other changes can be made to it while the site is updating. Okay, so what visitors will actually see while it's updating is that probably, oh, this site is being maintained, it'll be back in a few minutes, that sort of type of thing, right? So that's why you don't want to run updates during heavy traffic periods. Okay. So in this case, the update's kind of done pretty quickly. So, they've already disabled maintenance mode. So right now, visitors to the website should be seeing our website as it should be. Okay, but that's just one thing to be aware of. And that's how you run updates on your WordPress site. Okay, so now you know how to build your own WordPress site. So what's next? So as we mentioned in the previous lesson, the first thing is to remember to do regular backups and updates, at least at a minimum, on a weekly basis. But if you don't have the time, and not to mention you actually shouldn't be doing this task anyways, you want to be focusing on your $100, $1,000, and $10,000 value task, not these type of tasks. So we've also got a special offer on our WordPress maintenance service and pro site plans. Just have a look below for the special offer for registered users like you. Now, even though you know how to create your own WordPress site now, if you need a professionally custom designed logo, we also have a special offer for you below as well. Now, once you've got your WordPress website up, the next thing you need to do, and the most important thing is, you need to start driving traffic to your new WordPress site. But if you don't know how to do this, we've got a special offer on our AdWords Search Blueprint online training course below, which will show you how to use AdWords search campaigns to drive profitable traffic to your website. Now, after going through all of this, if you find that, hey, you know what, this is all fine and dandy, but I don't have the time, nor do I want to build my own WordPress site. If you don't want that, we also have another special offer for you with our Pro Sites, WordPress Sites plans. So I hope you enjoyed this course. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. And if you know anybody else or have any friends and family who might find this course useful, please feel free to share with them and get them to register for this free online course.